All right, time for our guest segment of the day, presented to you by Ally. And Ally's joined us earlier this year to support our podcast. They've been a great partner of mine for a couple years now. Had a lot of fun working with them. So we thank them for everything they do. It's awesome to have great allies in your life, Mike, professionally and personally. And we know many, but they bring to us part two of the Jeremy Mayfield interview. And after listening to part one, I mean, the whole conversation with Jeremy was pretty interesting, obviously. Obviously I didn't know everything, and we still don't know everything about what happened with Jeremy, but I guess kind of having read all of the comments on social media about it, I was just kind of interested on what you thought about going into the interview, what you thought, and then after listening to Jeremy and, all the other things that have come to light through social media and the comment section and so forth. What's your opinion?
I didn't really go look at what most people said on social media. I needed a few days to decompress and kind of process everything that we heard. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you that my theory did change a little bit on Jeremy Mayfield. I think it's, a lot of people, in most stories, you want to look at who was right, who was wrong, who screwed up, who did right. And I think it's possible that everybody did something wrong in this story. I don't know that there was a good guy versus bad guy in this. I think everybody had flaws. It's quite possible that nobody's innocent. Do I think Jeremy Mayfield failed a drug test? Yes. Do I think Jeremy Mayfield has taken methamphetamines in his life? Probably. I don't know. I have no idea. How could we know? I don't know. It's probable. I could say that. It's just an opinion. Do I think Dr. Black is suspicious? Yeah, I do. Do I think Brian France is suspicious? Yeah, I do. I think that it's quite possible that he acted illogically based off of a personal vendetta or just anger because, quite honestly, we've seen it. We've seen it ourselves. He almost suspended you for something you said at Talladega. And we were like, wait a second, suspension? What the heck? When he gets mad about something, it's certainly at that time, it's likely that he has an adverse reaction to it and it will flex. Yeah. And so I think that this was absolutely the case. The one thing I lacked, I'll say this, the one thing I lacked before the interview last week was I didn't understand or I didn't think there was a motive by NASCAR to really ostracize Jeremy Mayfield.
Yeah.
And I also thought the timing was suspicious or it didn't make sense. After the interview, I got that answered. I got a motive, and the timeline makes sense to me. The timeline makes sense to me because ending Jeremy Mayfield when he was still a Dodge driver and an Evernham driver meant that other people were going to suffer the repercussions of that, not just Jeremy. But then when he went independent, the dominoes started falling quickly when he went independent. I don't think that that's a coincidence. And then the motive, Jeremy Mayfield burned just about every bridge he had along the way. In fact, the biggest one happens in today's part two interview. Like, I think that what you hear, if you listen to this interview, this is the rise of Jeremy, but you'll start to see things that he did and fess up to, saying, I messed up here. I think he started creating situations where people were ready to end they were going to rid themselves of the Mayfield problem. Yeah. I think there was a Mayfield problem and he ended. So I just think the new drug policy by NASCAR had many holes in it. I don't think it was right. But I also don't think NASCAR would have ever come out and just said, oh, we messed this part up. Mm-hmm. Nope, don't think so. I just think that everybody had flaws in this one.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think that NASCAR was really out to get Jeremy. I think that they believed without question that Jeremy was guilty of failed drug test and that they were right and that he was wrong. And I think that NASCAR was not in the drug policy or drug testing business, right? They were taking advice and direction from those that are or were at the time. And so they're just they're hearing this information from Dr. Black and all these people going, well, it's the experts. This is what they're saying. So we're behind this, right? And so, I don't think that I think that there were some people in the industry, like you mentioned, that were absolutely disgusted with Jeremy Mayfield, and just he had done so many things over the more recent times in his Cup career toward the end there, that they were over it and angry with him. But I think, I don't know that I'm convinced that NASCAR acted unethically in handling the initial part of his drug tests and the failed drug tests and going to court and trying to fight that. I think that they believed in their minds that they were right and that Jeremy was wrong. I don't know that we'll ever know about Jeremy and meth and what he did or didn't do. And I don't know that I even care about that at this point.
Right.
I do think that once Jeremy lost his livelihood and his ability to at a steady income, he had to make some different difficult decisions, some hard decisions, and I think some of those hard decisions put him in some questionable company. And I think that those hard decisions and difficult choices he had to make also brought on the raid and all those other things that happened to him. And that he bears some responsibility for making those decisions, and he brought all that on himself when things got tight, right? And I hope that the Jeremy that we saw, or we see, or we interview, I hope that this Jeremy is beyond all that. But we hear him talking about, well, I don't really know what my next move is, or I'm not doing anything consistent professionally, and I'm trying to look for that next opportunity. So I think that hard decisions are still in his future. Mm-hmm. And I just hope that after everything he's been through, he won't put himself in these scenarios where he has to make the wrong decision to try to squeak one by or try to skirt the system or cut a corner.
Yeah.
To where he brings more negativity and problems into his life. And so I'm into redemption, second chances, and all those things, underdogs, which he's made himself an underdog after all this, unlikely to rebound type of, that type of deal. And I want to believe that everybody's got good in them, right? Everybody's got that. Everybody can turn it around, right? And so I guess some people can see the flaws in Jeremy and just say he's done. I got no time for it. Where I want to believe that he's going to figure out how to exist, right, without creating more and more problems for him down the road. And hopefully his opportunity to come out here and tell his side of it. I don't know what that does for him going forward, or if anything at all. It's not the first podcast or interview he's done since 2009 and all this went down. I mean, he's done many, but hopefully he gets a good response from it, and it gives him some confidence moving forward. I think listeners, reading comments and so forth, felt like we kind of went easy on him. I think that. Oh,
do they?
Yeah, I think that some people felt like we went a little easy on him, and I think people have to understand that when you bring somebody in the room like that you don't want them to feel like they've got to come in here and convince the whole room. There's more than just me and you in here. And whatever me and you are saying, they're going to assume that everyone else in here is on board with that, right? And so you don't want somebody to come in here and sit down and feel like they've got to convince the whole room of something. And we definitely didn't want to put Jeremy in that scenario right out of the gate and him become either, him get guarded, not want to discuss or open up, or him get defensive, combative, or whatever, which could possibly happen. And at the end of the day, we want to deliver a good podcast. And if he's having trouble or being comfortable in this room or in this scenario, then it's probably not going to happen. And so
you get the wrong two people to do it, by the way, if that's what people expected. We're not interrogators.
No.
I mean, it's not what we never claimed to be. But we were curious about the things that I think everybody else is curious about, and so we asked those questions. There's one question I wish we would have asked. We didn't.
Yeah.
I wish we'd have just asked him, hey, have you ever done drugs? Have you ever done, that were not prescribed?
I think, though, we know what he was going to say.
Of course we know what he was going to say, which gets to the other part where people are like, well, he was lying to you. But listen, we're not lie detectors.
Yeah.
We're having a conversation.
Yeah.
We don't know. You said it at the front. We don't know. You said it to Jeremy. I don't know if you're really telling the truth, but I don't really care about that part.
Yeah.
People need to not miss that. They need to really hear that. We're not trying to sit there and say, you're lying. USOB. Yeah. Now, tell me the real truth here. How could we? Mm-hmm. But this was a chance to give him a platform to speak his mind. He didn't need to do it. I'm sure he was ready to put this behind him.
Yeah.
That's what we asked him. Like, are you trying to still clear your name, or is you just ready for this to be over? I left with a bigger appreciation for Jeremy Mayfield. I really did. I didn't know him, but I thought we got everything that we tended to get out of him, really, frankly.
Yeah. Well, I think it was interesting when you see a guy wearing a uniform and let's look at Jeremy in the middle of his heyday, wearing Ray Abraham's red uniform, walking around. You think that guys like that are in that scenario they've got it made. They are sailing across the sea without a worry in the world. And what we've learned, and I think what this is an example of, is that person you saw on TV and in pictures and during interviews is a flawed person.
Yeah.
And can, in a scenario, in a bad scenario, when things get tight, make some difficult and bad decisions, some decisions you shouldn't make. And so, nobody's, like Jeremy said, he's like, you're one decision away from the bottom. And it was multiple things that sent him to the bottom, but that first decision was the beginning of it, right? And I think that even for someone that was in his situation, I mean, it's like, God, how could you do that to yourself, right? And how could you send yourself to the bottom like he did? But it's easier to do than I think a lot of people think.
The craziest thing he said, I told you this afterwards, the craziest thing he said is what you're about to hear today. He said something in today's interview that I was like, what? You did what?
Yeah.
Like, I could not believe what he did.
Yeah.
And I just leave it at that. That was the one that stunned me. And then also it sort of influenced my new worldview about the Mayfield case of the fall. Like, I think it starts to make sense again. But like, I couldn't, and he even said, I did mess up. And it had nothing to do with drug tests. It had everything to do with back in his Evernham days. So,
yeah, it's going to be a pretty interesting interview. We talk about how he gets his start and then going through his Cup career and it's a lot. We talk about basically all the bridges that get burned, and we in a perfect world, you would probably put the drug issues and everything that led up to today on the back end of that story, because that's the timeline. But you guys, we knew you were gonna want that one story first.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. What are we going to do? Go 2 hours on it on Pocono and the record of our. There is one more thing I think we should just clarify. I mean, I was talking to Ryan McGee on the phone, and McGee had given me a piece of information that I thought was important. We had thought that NASCAR instituted the drug policy based off of stuff that happened in other sports, but McGee was telling me the thing that really kind of triggered that whole drug policy coming into the sport was because of a race car driver. Dang it, I've already forgot his name again.
Are you sure you got the right name?
I don't know.
You don't want to make a mistake.
You're right. I don't want to make That's a good point. There was a race car driver that admitted being under the influence of drugs during a race and actually finishing well, and that was sort of a waking up that, like, wait a second, we cannot have this, which, of course, you can't have that, right? You cannot have that. So that was something that we were just trying to, almost speculating, because we couldn't remember in the last week's episode as we had Mayfield at the table. But so there is that.
Yeah, I mentioned that NASCAR had started the policy because of what was happening outside of the NASCAR world, but in other sports, and you have new information that it was actually within NASCAR. Yeah, there was some things happening, and so they created the policy then. All right, before we get to Mayfield Part 2, let's take a listen to this. NASCAR said you failed a test going into Richmond.
Last week on the Dale Jr. Download, a conversation with Jeremy Mayfield.
Well, we're sitting in the trailer, like you said, sweat pouring off all of us, Walk up there, and the guy hands you a cup, and here, he's got paperwork scattered all over his desk and everything else. Go in the bathroom, and he goes, oh, wait a minute. So I turn around, open the door back up, walk back out. Well, let me see the cup. You need to wash your hands first. Okay, I'm going to wash my hands, I didn't know what I was supposed to do, Go back out. Here you go, here's your cup back. He hands you the cup, and then you go pee in the cup,
That's wrong.
Yeah, it's all wrong, and I found that out after. It's just a mess, what I seen.
The media would go to NASCAR, the media would go back to you, the media would go back to NASCAR, and then in the courts, you were like, I ain't doing road to recover because I didn't do nothing.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You had that stance throughout the whole thing, and you lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
You died on that hill.
Yep.
Your career died on that hill, and you were hard-headed.
Yeah. When you say hard-headed, I do feel like I was hard-headed in a lot of ways on that, but it's what I believed in. All right, I was taking Adderall. I didn't know Adderall was a bad thing. I didn't know, and I didn't know that we could not take it because there was no list and there wasn't nobody. They just said when you start taking something, as you remember, I'm sure the meeting we had, then to let us know when they tested. If we got tested. I got a doctor's prescription here. Everything's right. Everything's supposed to be like it is. And all of a sudden, they say I'm positive on the drug test. Well, and I'm hoping that they would say what they should have said is, okay, we don't want you taking Adderall anymore or Claritin or whatever it was. Immediately he said, oh, that's not good. A person your age shouldn't be taking Adderall. So okay, I won't take it anymore. No big deal, none whatsoever. And I said, and I was taking my Claritin D, along with it, just letting you know that. And he said, oh, now we got a problem.
Eventually, NASCAR said you failed a second drug test. You were at that time then trying to go get your own independent test done as well.
It just didn't make sense to me, And then I thought, well, the justice system, I didn't want to fight it. First of all, we went and sat down with them and said, hey, this
sit down with who?
With NASCAR, and we said we don't want to go through this. We just tell us what you want us to do. Well, and Dr. Black was stern on, well, you need to go to road to recovery and this, that, and the other. And supposedly I was, according to Dr. Black, was getting, pumped up for qualifying or whatever he said it was, but stimulated or whatever. But
there was some other issues going on in other sports, and the media was like, well, what about NASCAR? How do you know there's not any problems? You don't have a policy. Boom, here's our policy. We got this new policy, and all the drivers were like, all right, well none of us taking drugs, right? So, like, right. No problem. And but it was also kind of vague as they were rolling it out.
Yeah.
He raises his hand. Carl's like, what about these over-the-counter drugs that are on our race cars, right? What about these, And they really weren't clear on what to tell you about that.
Right.
And I think at that time, we all were, like, skeptical about, like, what you were going through. Whether this testing policy was legit, was genuine, were they possibly picking up, Claritin D and Adderall and things like that, and not sure whether they were illegal drugs or was it this prescription, right? We weren't sure. Right. None of us felt safe.
You don't sue NASCAR and get a attorney out of Charlotte. You know what I mean? And I should have known that to start with, and I didn't. I did. I just wasn't paying attention.
Oh, you're saying that just there was somebody at NASCAR got to him?
Pretty much. I'll go ahead and say that. When he said, here they come, it was all blacked out, just AR-15s, just coming from everywhere. On the floor, and all this stuff, There was no sheriff, nothing on their suits, nothing, just all black, camouflage black. Faces covered, running side by side, and they had the big thing that opened, that slammed the door open and pouring all the cereal out of the, out of the boxes, and grabbed her and threw her down. She just got out of the shower. Got her in handcuffs, face planted to the floor for no reason. They was gonna kill my dog. He was barking, so that if you don't shut your dog up, we're gonna kill your dog. And shows me a search warrant. So we had a search warrant to search the property, looking for a stolen piece of scrap metal and like a plate, 12 by 12 or 14 by 12 steel plate. They wanted me to open my safe up. Nowhere on the search warrant said we're looking for, we want to get in your safe or search your safe or anything else. They're looking for a stolen piece of scrap metal. So we walked back in there, opened the safe up. They said, okay, now you need to go back on the front porch. One of the detectives did, and he said, I need to see you for a second. So I walked over the side, and he had his hand like this, and you can see like like plastic on the other end of it, just barely a piece of plastic sticking out of his hand. He said, you know what I got here in my hand? I said, no. He said, we found meth in your safe. I said, you didn't find meth in my safe.
You had 2 hours to get to the
Yeah.
to the lab to do the test, but it was 7 hours later, and you said you were lost, you couldn't get there, and they took it as, if I'm remembering this right, they took it as well, this is a tactic by somebody that doesn't want to be
Right.
tested. What is your explanation on
Right.
that?
So I called my attorney, and he said, just sit tight, don't do anything. Just don't do nothing, because he didn't know what to do. We're back and forth. When they sent somebody out, they were determined that they were going to, do the test. That's when we set up the one for 20 minutes later. The first time we went to court, Brian France was in there, and Helton was there, and all the guys. And I told Mike, I was like, I don't want this. I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I want to work something out here. I don't want to have to say anything about it, because NASCAR wasn't ever bad to me. It's been great to me.
Talking about it getting personal, you said on another podcast that you got, during all this, that you got a phone call from Brian's ex. He was going through a divorce.
Brian Francis' ex,
Yeah,
right?
Brian Francis' ex called you, her and her attorney, to give you some information that they thought you'd need to hear.
Right, and that's another reason why I stuck it out, because then I found out what was really going on. She started asking me questions. It was like, well, Indy and at Indy in 05 or 06, whatever it was, did you get black flag for no reason and this, that, and the other? And so I started thinking back, and then she said, well, so-and-so didn't like you calling out the owners, basically. I didn't really call out Ray. I just talked to the press one day, and it came out on paper that I did, but I didn't call him out, So she started saying all this stuff that her ex-husband, which was Brian, didn't, that I was nothing more than a laborer. None of the drivers were. We're just laborers, and his owners are the important part of this whole deal. The laborers can come and go, and he didn't like me calling out Ray, basically,
That gave you more confidence in the idea that this was personal.
Right. So I was mad, I was pissed off and probably done some things, said some things I shouldn't have said, during that period.
Yeah.
He didn't want to hear it. It was just going to be, this is what's going to happen, and they're going to, now that you sued us, that we're just going to make you kill your credibility and just wear you down to nothing, basically, and that's what happened. I just felt like I was blackballed.
I don't know what you're wanting to do or trying to do beyond this, but I think that you can, like, you went to Nashville, had a great experience. You ran, you saw some people you hadn't seen in a long time. Mending fences is always a great idea. If you got some people that you think might not be real happy with you, it's always good to go try to fix that when you can. It's not necessary, but I bet it felt good that you and Ray are at least on talking terms now.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I think when you see, I think you can go in and around the industry and to races and to the, and wherever people that you worked with in the past might be, and you'll get a great reception.
Right.
I really do.
Yeah. And it's been like that a lot of places. So far, everywhere I've been has been really good,
We didn't even get into
Wrecking the Intimidator.
Yeah, Wrecking Dad and all of that stuff.
Well, we can.
So, first off, I want to know how you ended up racing late models at Nashville. So talk about, apparently you took, because the Saddlers had a car and you took it and raced it and they didn't know you was doing that or something.
Right.
And so give me the whole rundown of how you were a fabricator.
Yeah. And
so like a good fabricator?
Not really, not at the time. I wasn't.
Crush panels?
Yeah,
we talking crush panels?
Yeah, and a little bit of aluminum welding, that kind of stuff,
Because everything was fabricating back then.
Right. And, Saddlers had a small team in Nashville, Tennessee, and they one or two guys working for them. I think Ken Reagan drove for them, and several drivers like that. Sterling Marlin started out there. So I was in Owensboro racing my late model there.
You had your own car?
Yeah, I had my own car. It's pretty much like a outlaw car. You can run any body you want to run on it, any motor you want to run in, as long as it wasn't aluminum.
Dirt, pavement?
Pavement. Yeah, at Kentucky Motor Speedway, and all the Louisville guys would come down. Frank Kimmel and that whole group he had, and they'd all come down and race there. And I was the only one from the area that raced late models. So they would come down and we'd race hard every week, and beat and bang and everything. And then
were you winning?
Yeah, we
good.
Oh yeah, we're doing real good. We won like 9 out of the last 11 races with them, against all those guys. There's about 20 or 30 of them.
Besides you, was there any racing in your family?
Yeah, my uncle, not really, not in professionally, but my uncle had a late model one time.
Right,
my dad raced a little bit, and that's
So that's
about
how
it.
you got into it?
Yeah.
Because you grew up around a little bit?
Yeah, just grew up around it, and watching the Daytona 500 every year would come on, and Kel Yarborough and your dad and everybody else, and Darrell Waltrip because he was from there. So just basically just wanted to race, and Owensboro is a small town that doesn't have a lot going on for it, so racing there is kind of big, but it's not really that big, But I think it's like the Greens come through there, Michael,
Yep.
Everybody come through there, and we all come through at different times because we really didn't know each other, knew of each other, but not, wasn't friends with each other, whatever. And but I think each one of us give the other one, the inspiration or whatever to do it, that could be done, And so we'd kind of run out of money in like 88, something like that. Didn't run out of money, just kind of got as far as I could go with late models, and we didn't spend a lot on it, And I'd been racing Nashville a little bit, going there and trying to run anyway. It's pretty expensive to run down there, but we'd go down and try to run. And a little track called Highland Rim, Tennessee. You ever heard of that one?
Nope.
Yeah, I don't even know what you
Rim.
just said. What'd you say?
Highland Rim, Tennessee.
Highland Rim.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I've heard of that one.
The Hamiltons.
Yeah, the Hamiltons. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was racing there actually before I went to Nashville, and met a guy there that owned the engine shop, whatever, and he just happened to call me one day and say, "Hey, man, there's Saddlers are racing. They got a little cup team down here, and they were looking for a fabricator, and thought you might be interested." So that was on like a Wednesday. Well, Thursday I drive down there and talk to Saddlers, and it was Mr. Sadler. He was an older man, owned a trucking company, hauled U.S. mail, and
Hauled U.S. mail?
Yeah, hauled U.S. mail for the government, and he always wore his hat real down real far and had his flat bill on, and he was telling me, he talked kind of funny. He was a great guy, but anyway, they was looking for a fabricator, and they was going to pay me, I forgot, like $200 a week or something like that, $240 or something. Oh, yeah, it was hardly nothing. And so I'm like, well, let me think about it. And that was on Thursday. So I went home, and way home from Nashville, I'm thinking about it, and told my mom on Saturday that I was leaving, going to Nashville, and I left on Sunday and never looked back. So I loaded up my S10 truck and with a few parts on it, and a little bit of money, and went to Nashville. And it's funny because I went when I went down there, it was they were getting ready to go to Daytona, so I didn't need anywhere to stay. I just went on down there and went straight to Daytona for 2 weeks, like it used to be, And
what year was this?
Like a 90 something like.
Who was
91.
driving the car?
Eddie Bierswell. You remember?
Yeah,
you remember him?
I remember
Yep.
him.
And so I go down
That
there.
Eddie Bishwell,
Yeah,
from Texas World Speedway,
Yeah.
or from San Antonio. Oh wow!
Yep.
He just did a show
So I
back
go
then.
down there and we do that deal. Try to, and I don't know where I'm in the garage area and don't know. I'm amazed, really.
Yeah, right.
Earnhardt's over here and Darrell Waltrip's over there.
Holy
Yeah, and all I know is I just left. I never even. I think I was 19 years old. I never even been on my own. Never. I didn't know how to wash my clothes or nothing. I just took off, went to Nashville, and so I got to know a lot of people though. So when I worked for Saddlers, well, we'd run like 5 or 6 races a year. Cup races. Try to. We wouldn't make most of them, but got to know Larry McClure because we rented his motor sometime, and Robert Yates and Roush, and I'd go pick up the motors and stuff. Bring them back, and that's how I kind of got.
What are y'all
started,
doing in between them cup races?
I'm trying to convince them to run Nashville, run the big track, because that's where.
What else is at the shop? They got other cars?
Yeah, they had like 4 or 5 cars, but
Like what types?
they's all cup cars.
Okay.
Yeah,
so they didn't have any. They weren't running a weekly.
No, but I had told them when I went down there, I said, I'll come down and work for you, but I want, like I knew, like they really needed me. I said, I'm coming down and work for you, but if you ever need a driver pretty much down the line, that's what I want to do, And so I became good friends with them along the way. They trusted me, Then I become like the crew chief / team manager over about the first 6 months I was there, And then I started running the whole shop, which the whole shop is nothing there when you're not racing that much, but it's still 2 or 3 guys under me, whatever. And all of a sudden, they bought so much fuel from Texaco that Texaco would give them brakes on stuff, and they bought fleets of trucks at one time, this, that, and the other. Well, he come to me one day and he said, "Hey, Texaco wants to do a race at Nashville over here at the Speedway." It was Texaco Premium Diesel, I think, at the time. And how can we get a car, late model car? I'm thinking, I got one, the old one I used to run, but I'm thinking, man, I don't know. But so Jeff Green's old car that he ran real good in was for sale. So I talked him into buying that car, and then by the time we bought it, they were like, "You think he'll drive it for us?" Talking about Jeff, I'm like, well, man, here we go again,
Yeah.
So I convinced him to let me drive it anyway. And so I ended up running that one race, and Mr. Sadler, he's just a funny guy, but he enjoyed it and liked it. And then next thing I know, we're racing the next week and the next week. And then I ended up, they said put all their stuff on hold as far as their cup stuff, and we raced Nashville for a year. You know,
late models.
Yeah, late models. Yeah.
What did the car look like? What kind of car was it?
It was Illumina. Remember the Illuminas back then, and you had to at that time you fabricated your own body like late model stocks used to be, but they had to be like the Bush cars or whatever. You know, bonded up. Yeah, steel bodies. So I went from working in the Cup garage running Cup stuff, you know, way underfunded, way just under budget and everything else. To now I'm racing Nashville full time. I got the best deal out there. You know, I'm like, they can afford to do that easy. You know, we got a brand new car and we're ready to go. So I took advantage of that, you know, and so we decided to race the whole season the next year, and I would go over and test because our shop was about 2 miles from the racetrack. So I'd go test every week, just go over and run it. And I met a guy named James Graves. He used to own Nova Computers, and he was one of the first guys out. This was 91 or 92 now, and we had telemetry on my car back then, you know. Yeah. And we had the infrared things on the wheels and everything, so we could see everything going on. And he'd worked with a couple of Cup teams, but not that many. And Bobby Hamilton was one of them because Bobby's from Nashville. So meanwhile, we'd go test every week, and he's doing it for free just to get his equipment worked out and this, that, and the other. So I learned a lot, you know, learned what everything does on race cars, you know, and had the opportunity to do that and race along the way. Well, I run 1 year and got everything going right, and then they're like, hey, let's move up to ARCA. Let's run some ARCA races. I was like, man, I want to run another year in Nashville because we're just now getting good, you know. And so anyway, we bought some ARCA cars or built some ARCA cars out of the stuff we already had, you know, is what they were wanting to do. And I said, well, if we're going to run the full season, we're going to need a good short track car. And they're like, well, just take it over. It was a Rob Moroso road course car that they bought for somebody a long time ago. It was sitting out back. Take the old car there and make you a short track car out of that, you know. I knew ARCA, you know, ARCA was pretty much late models on their short track stuff at that time. So I thought, man, how are we going to run the full season? I only have a good short track car, you know. So, but I was good with them, you know, as personally. And so I said, well, I'll just build one. I go to Ronnie Hutton was the guy who built chassis at Nashville, and he's the one who built my car I was running in Nashville. I'll go to Ronnie and get a chassis and have him build out the stuff, you know, over a time. You know, it looks like we're buying rear end, buying some parts, buying some hubs and whatever for other cars, and I'll have me a brand new car. So I got the chassis done. It was in here, and then he starts building out stuff, and I started getting everything in. All of a sudden, we got a brand new, look great, best looking car in the shop, you know, and had all the Cup stuff, was good ARCA stuff, but it was kind of beat up, you know. And all of a sudden, Earl come over, Earl Sadler would come over one morning. He goes, looked at this car, and it's like just got it painted and everything. You know, he's like, "What car is this?" And I said, "It's our short track car." You know, man, y'all did a good job on that. Talking about that Moroso car, you know, you did a good job on that car. And I said, "Yeah, thank you." You know, just that another. Never did tell him what the situation was, but so anyway, I got my new short track car, and I got all my speedway stuff ready to go and intermediate. We take off. We're like 5th in points or 3rd in points, running pretty good, and that's when they run Texas World Speedway at that time. You said that a while ago. Yeah. And so we're at run good there in Atlanta and all these places. And then all of a sudden, this is the way they were. He comes over one morning, he goes, "Hey, we're not going to run any more of them short tracks." I was like, man, because Flat Rock was coming up, Toledo, Ohio, all these ones, and we're like top 5 in the points, you know. And I'm not even going to be able to run a brand new car that I just made it all happen, you know. And I said, really? And he couldn't convince him. He just like, nah, we don't need to mess that stuff. We'll just keep you, running the intermediate big stuff, you know. I was like, that was far and few between at that time. You know, you wouldn't race every week on a big track. So thinking, man, so all of a sudden it come time for Flat Rock. Like, I think they run the 3-day, it was like Flat Rock, Michigan, Toledo, Ohio, then Killcare all in one weekend. 3 nights of racing, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So about Thursday, I'm thinking, waiting for him to come over and tell me to go ahead and go, you know, and he doesn't. I'm like, I told all the guys, I said, we're going. So we loaded the car up, got everything ready, got in a minivan. I had a credit card from the shop there, and we went racing. We left at like late Thursday night. And all I could do was just hope that he wouldn't show up by the shop and see where we're going, you know. Yeah. So we take off racing with all his stuff, you know, and luckily we won. I think we were in somewhere like top 3 at Toledo, and then the Saturday night we won at Flat Rock. Thank God, you know. And so I call him up. I said, Mr. Earl. He said, yeah. I said, hey, we're up here in Michigan. We just won the race. He goes, you where? If you got no way to talk, you know. I said, yeah, we're up here in Michigan. We just won the race, you know. Where you at? I said, Michigan. Up here, we're at Flat Rock, Michigan. We just won. Won what? You ain't supposed to. I thought we weren't running no more than short track, races. I said, well, I didn't think you for sure about it. I thought you just talked about not running. I didn't know say. But I knew about winning, you know. And he goes, but you up there? And I said, yeah. He said, man. He said, you won? I said, yeah. He said, well, good job, buddy. Everything was great, you know. Yeah. But if I hadn't won that weekend and called him, only thing I was hoping for is I'd go back and he just didn't come out over the weekend and wouldn't know it, you know. Yeah. But just stuff like that's the way I ended up having to deal with all that. So
how did you get from? Did they end up going Cup racing with you?
Yeah, we run some more. Actually, we finished that ARCA season out, and I'm thinking, I think we finished 3rd in points. I need one more year. You know, I want to run one more year because I'm just now getting to know everything, you know. And they're like, no, we're not running no more at ARCA stuff, you know. And so they ruined my deal in Nashville. Now they ruined my plans on ARCA, you know. But I'm thinking, okay. And they said, we're going to go cup racing. And I thought, there's no way we can cup race out of here, you know. So we didn't have no new cars, nothing. And some of the stuff I ran ARCA and a couple of cars that were sitting back in the shop. And how you going to turn it down, you know, going cup racing? And I'm like, man, that's going to, you know, I'm not ready for it pretty much. I was like 20 years old, 21, something like that at the time. And at that time, you worked your way up through that deal. You had to get Earnhardt approved before you was going to stay around. You know what I'm talking about. So, but I knew everybody in the garage area because I rented motors. You know, we rented motors and stuff from them. So I was like, okay, how many races we're running? Oh, we're running like 8 or 10 races. I thought, man, this is going to be tough. We're going to be lucky to get to one, you know. We're running Daytona and Talladega and all these big races, you know. So I said, okay, you know, and then we're running Wilkesboro and a couple of short tracks at another. So we started off like that. We go, and our first race was going to be at Charlotte, I think, and for the World 600, I think. It was the first, you know, big race we were going to make. We missed it. No, we went to Michigan is what it was. We went to Michigan, missed it, and then went to Charlotte, and I made Charlotte. And I'll never forget sitting down on the line, you know, sitting in my car, first one, you know, we made. And because we missed no telling how many of them before that, you know, when I was just working for them. But sitting on that line knowing that we just made Charlotte, you know, and racing against Earnhardt and Walter, and all them guys were there in, Bobby Labonte and Terry and all them guys, and Bobby Hamilton, you know, and all them from Nashville. And so after Charlotte, we was going to Richmond or Wilkesboro one. I forget which one, you know, actually which one it was. But I'm thinking now we're really going to get the doors blowed off. So we took an old BSR car we had, and at Nashville, you got to soak your tires to run good. You know, everybody did it. Now I'm going to a cup race with a BSR car, which was just an outdated car. Wasn't nothing wrong with the cars. How am I going to make this race, you know? And, you know, because at that point in time, I got to do whatever I got to do to race, you know? Yeah. And so we decided we just prep our tires a little bit and go, you know, we'll make the race in Wilkesboro. We'll try to. That's our only shot. Yeah. And so we go to Richmond is what it was to start with. So I go to Richmond. We got a big super speedway motor in there or something, you know, intermediate motor. And I remember driving around and I'd get in the gas and it just bogged down, you know, it just wasn't a short track motor. So I had my buddy up in the top of the truck. He's, you know, prepping our tires. Our tire guy
in the lounge,
you know, up in the top of the trailer.
Front?
Yeah, up in the front. Because we didn't have a lounge. We just had an open area up there. And I remember coming down to practice and I'm thinking, man, we ain't got a shot, you know. And I'm smelling everything you smell coming out of the back of the truck, you know. I'm thinking, man, we're in trouble.
You can smell the tire prep.
Yeah, and that time there's probably 50 cars there. You know, you had to make the race. And we're way down in the hole down here, you know, and I'm thinking, man, this is not going to work, you know, scared to death. And so I said, anybody checked on the tire guy, you know, and he's all right, you know, whatever. So he puts the tires on, and he used to do a real good job of it, and he'd clean them all up and everything. But he puts our tires on, we're rolling through tech, and I'm pushing the car through tech. I remember looking down, I'm thinking, oh, my God. I mean, the Goodyear's coming off of it. It just didn't look good, you know. Yeah. And all of a sudden I said, I mean, it was a little bad. You could tell something was running off the tires, you know. And
it's leaving a trail.
Yeah, leaving a trail. And you could still smell it, you know. But I remember coming, pushing like this, and we're in line going through tech. Here comes Elmo Langley with this some kind of big old red box, and I don't know, it looked like metal detectors, how big it looked, you know. And he's going by
NASCAR official.
Yeah, NASCAR official. And he's smelling everybody's tires and stuff, you know. And I'm thinking, man, what do I do? You know, I can't pull out a line. My tires, it's obvious that we've cleaned them with something, you know what I mean? And I'm just praying, I'm done, you know, it's over. And he's going through looking at all the stuff, and all of a sudden he gets to our car and he goes all the way around it. And nothing's
it didn't do it.
Nothing's beeping. I'm like, and my heart was going boom, 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 like this.
Machine's just for looks.
Yeah, and he come to me like this, and he goes, winked at me, you know, and I thought, I don't know still to this day if that was a wink that I could have got you and I didn't, or the machine didn't work, or because if it worked, something's going to happen, you know. And then he walked right on by, so I'm thinking, man, we're going to get by with this. So we went out to qualify, and I think, you know, Richmond's always second lap's the fastest, whatever. So we got to qualify. My first lap, I got in the gas, and it just goes, just ball big time. So I made my first lap, and I thought, man, I ain't got no choice. I went about 5 car lengths over my head into one, spin out, boom, hit the wall. Yeah, wrecked and hit the wall.
Holy
yeah. So my first lap was good enough. If I'd have run my second, made it, that would have been on the pole for the NASCAR. I ended up like 11th or something like that, or 14th or something like that on my first lap.
Damn.
So then it got big. Now we take the car back to the garage area. You know, my backup's like a intermediate or speedway. I don't even know if I got a backup. You know, and I know the seat wasn't in there or nothing else. You know, so we're now scrambling, and everybody's overlooking at the BSR car. And a lot of people were like, man, I like this chat. You know, Ricky Rose, one of them, you know, he's overlooking at it. Everybody's wanting to know how we were so fast, you know, and it was a drop snout or something, you know. Yeah. And so we got all that done. Anyway, make a long story short, we made it through that weekend, made the race, and then went to Wilkesboro. Thought, well, if it worked at Richmond, it'll work at Wilkesboro, Qualified 11th there. And I don't know if it's tires or not, but I just know that whatever we had going on, we run pretty good, qualified good anyway. And then after that, I think we run another race, and they were like, well, we're not going to run any more cup races this year, I'm like, just out of nowhere, that's the way they do, I was like, oh, okay, so I thought it was over, pretty much.
So I remember vaguely like you having some really, really good moments in that Sadler car.
Right.
And like, that was what led to your opportunity with Cale. You didn't just like get this random phone call. Like you done stuff in the Sadler car, like the qualifying efforts and so forth.
Right.
Because that car was like a 30th to 40th place car most weeks when Eddie was driving it or anybody else.
Yep.
But you would, and that was a sign that like, man, this guy's special.
Right.
Right. And so you get a phone call from Cale.
Yeah.
Did he call you?
Oh yeah, he called me.
Cale himself.
Cale himself, and he said, "Hey, Jeremy." I said, "Yes, him. It's Cale Yarborough." They just told me we weren't going to race anymore. It all just happened like just perfect timing, And I was like, "Yeah, right." Cale who? He's like, "Yes, Cale." Well, maybe it is. I didn't know. Sound like him. So anyway, after that, I went and met with Cale, and that was the experience.
Yeah. You had not met Cale before that?
No, and Cale was one of my heroes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I looked up to Cale.
What was it like? What do you mean it was an experience?
Yeah, so I get on the plane. There again, I'm from Kentucky, right? And I never went to Nashville, just raced. That's all I knew, and I've told you exactly the way it's been, and had no idea how to negotiate or talk to anybody about anything, I just thought I just want to race, So show up at Cale's shop, flying over there, he gets me a plane ticket, whatever, and fly over there. Sitting in his office, and and he's ready about like this, and keeps his feet up on the desk, and Cale was really he don't say a lot, but when he talks, he just says what it's going to be, and he's sitting there telling me, I'm going to get rid of this guy, I'm going to try to bring you on, this, that, and the other, and he said, how much money you going to need? And remember, I started working for Sadler's pretty cheap, but I was up pretty good at the time, so I said, I'm thinking, I knew what I already made, and that's barely getting me by, you know what I mean? So I don't know what I'm going to do coming over here if it's anything less than that, So I just kind of threw a number out there, and as soon as I said a number, I think it was like, it wasn't much. It was like $50,000 and 20% of the purse, what Sadler's ended up paying me, or 900 a week is what it was, and something, And Cale just went like that. I watched he's sitting up on the desk, his face just turned red like this, just blood red, and I was like, and he just sat there, I'm thinking, man, I wonder what that means, I didn't know what to say, And he said, boy, I ain't never had a salary. All you guys want these salaries now before you race. I ain't never had a salary in race. I always got a percentage of the purse, is all I got. And thinking, man, my only shot here, getting ready to go drive for Cale Yarborough, and he turned red, blood red over it. And I was like, wow, I didn't know what to think. He said, but I tell you what I'll do. He said, I'll pay you that, but you're going to be in the shop every day, working in the shop from 8 to 5, whatever. You're going to ride with the guys, and you're going to be one of them. That's what we're going to do. So I left there going, well, I got $900 a week. I got 20% of the purse, pretty good deal, But didn't even really had enough money to even move over here, I thought, now how am I going to get back over here? Oh, I had to move over there too as part of it, So I ended up moving over there, figured out a way or whatever. But it turned out good with Cale, We ended up worked in the shop with the guys and this, that, and the other, and just kept working my way up. And then, how that goes from there. And got different crew chief in there. And
who was your crew chief?
Tony Furr ended up being it.
Tony Furr?
Yeah. Who was the first guy?
Now that you say, I can't remember his name. It was a guy named Ken from Roush. But he had when I first got there, it was bad too. But that's another reason why I learned to speak up a little bit and shouldn't have. Was when you see something and it's, that's blue and that's white, you're gonna say, hey, no, wait a minute, that's blue and that's white. This guy would be like, no, that's red and that's black. That's the way we work with each other. I'm like, man, this isn't working. But wasn't going to say anything because I thought, well, this is cup racing. This is the way it's supposed to be. And then Tony came in and really helped our program out a lot.
So right around the time, so why did you switch with Cranifus? So Cranifus had John Andretti, and you were with Tony Furr at the 98 car, which was Cale's. I think it was a 98.
Yep.
And why did y'all switch? Because Cale's car, you talk about it in another podcast where Cale's car was just starting to get pretty good, especially to speedway stuff. They go win with John.
Right.
Tony Furr was awesome at finding holes in the rule book.
Right.
One of my favorite things about him. But why did you go there? Why did you switch?
I just felt like that, when Cranfus came in, it was Cranfus Hoss. It was another step up, pretty much. And just my whole career was like that. Everything just happened at certain points of it,
The outfit itself had a little more prestige and upside.
Yeah, it did. And it, they had more money and, race off of it. And Kel really never got the full-blown sponsorship money that a lot of teams had, And so I just seen it as an opportunity. And I thought, man, if I don't, so I just took that chance and went, and moved on with them. And then John went to Kale's, obviously, and which was doing great. Like you said, they knew how to run good and try to.
What do you think it was that made the Speedway car so fast that John ended up winning with at Daytona in July? Did they?
I'll trade you one.
Were they what? Trade you secrets?
Yeah, one for one. No, but they really worked hard on everything. Tony was good about getting the car low. And you remember all those cars look. I mean, he had everything cheated up on it. Not cheated up, just to the limit, you know. And we just started getting good at it because I sat on the pole at Talladega with them before I left by half a second. On the first lap. Yeah, and I remember Tony said, just if I ask you if it's running hot, shut it off. Well, Tony ain't never gonna stutter. I go through turn 1 and 2 on the second lap, getting ready to come around for the second lap, and I get on the backstretch and he goes, buddy, it's stuttering. Is it running hot? Yeah, okay. I shut it off. And I thought, man, that sounded weird. Something big must just happen. So I coasted in, and I could just see the look on his face when I'm coming down pit road. That something wasn't right. And anyway, they took our car. And we ended up, getting credit for the pole and everything. But I remember Gary Nelson walking up to us and saying, right on pit road, right when I got out of the car, he looked at Tony. He said, I'm fixing to go right around the backstretch and looking. He said, so if you tell me now, I'll make it easy on you,
Thinking there's something out there.
Yeah, and I'm thinking.
Evidence.
I know I didn't throw nothing out, you know. And Tony's sitting there looking at him real concerned. He's rubbing his chin like this, and he goes, you going to ride around the track? And he said, yeah, I'm going to ride around the backstretch. And he said, if I find it, you're going to be in big trouble unless you tell me right now what went on here. And Tony sat there real confused. I was like, tell him, Tony, like, what have you got to do here? Because at that time I'm scared to death about everything anyway, And I remember Tony looking at me real serious, and he looks up and kind of does his face like this. He goes, Gary, he said, I believe I'll take my chances, like that. and Gary looked at me, he was mad, man. I was like, like whatever happened, but evidently, I knew we weren't going to find nothing. I didn't throw nothing out, But for Furr, that's just the way he did things. He wanted Gary to really think there was something back there. Well, I just believe I'll take my chances on that.
I think Tony Furr ended up going to the 25 car in crew chief and at one point, and they ended up sitting on the pole at Daytona, and they found out that they had put soap or something in the spring bucket, and something that would either once the car went down and landed in the corner, it'd push it all out,
right?
And the car would drop a half. And I think who was driving the car?
I don't think it was Nadu. I
thought it was Nadu.
It's either Nadu or Vickers.
It wasn't Vickers.
So then it would be Nadu.
I think it was Nadu. And it could have been Nemechek. I don't know why that name pops up in my head. But either way, they sat on the pole like by 3/10 of half a second. Right. And they called them. Like they were obviously come in and take the car, and it was super duper low. But Furr, when I think of Furr, I think of so we celebrate creativity in this room. We celebrate guys that can figure out ways to work around the words in the rule book, and they make them write a new rule, right?
Right.
And Furr would be a great guest.
Where is he?
Yeah.
Where's he these days?
If he'd be willing to tell the truth, like DW come in here and told us all about how he was dumping weight out of the frame rail.
I mean, it's stuff all over.
There's a car. I got a car in my junkyard. They dropped lead out the jack post.
Right. You watch all these little short tracks nowadays, even at Millbridge and places, and everybody's afraid to do anything, And I'm thinking, what I've seen in the past and what I know you've probably seen too, the higher level you go, the more cheating there is. There's more going on there than it really is. I don't know if you call it cheating, but you call it something.
Creativity.
Creativity.
Innovative thinking,
It's the season of all the more comfort and joy at Cracker Barrel. You'll taste it in our returning holiday favorites: country fried turkey and cinnamon swirl French toast, sweet, savory, and so much goodness. And feel it in our Old Country store too, where you'll find can't get it anywhere else gifts for everyone on your holiday list. Come home for the holidays. Come to Cracker Barrel.
Not to diverge us, but I wanted to ask y'all this earlier. Do they do creative things to those?
Oh, I don't know. I don't go at the dirt track,
at the mill bridges and stuff.
No, pretty much not. Really, a lot you can do.
Yeah.
And
is there really not?
I think that
I've been thinking of stuff, but
I think Brexton Clint told me the other day that they threw Brexton out for something on his carburetor.
Oh, really?
A spacer plate or something.
Yeah. See,
Okay. So there is something.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the easiest thing for those little things is the motor.
Yeah, the motor.
Cheat it up a little bit.
I'm going to tell you, when you asked him about what John Andretti's car had on it when it won the pole the next year, you know something. You know some creativity.
Oh, well, of course he does.
Yeah, I know. So you're not going to tell us anything?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that I heard. I'm not for sure, but I heard it was I'm pretty sure at that time you could take – when you show up at the racetrack and they pump your motors, you know, they pump one cylinder or whatever, and they pump that same motor all weekend, the same cylinder. And if you were going to cheat, this is the way you do it, is that you'd have a couple motors in the trailer. Remember, we used to change motors out for qualifying motors, all this, that, and the other, just all throughout the weekend. And whatever they pumped on that cylinder, you'd have one motor that's opposite in the trailer. And you could, when you put your race motor in or whatever it is, or other qualifier, you put it in, and it may be different than the one that you pulled out.
Yeah.
You know, bigger cubic inches or wide bore or small stroke, or it could be anything. It could even have an air leak in one of the cylinders that's, you know, like it acts like a compressor. You know, I've seen that happen too. Heard about that.
I know the McClure guys, like when Sterling and all them were winning, they were Pittman, I think is the name of the engine builder, was sucking air on the intake.
Yep.
And there was all kinds of ways you could do that. I told it on this podcast a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, Doug Yates was on.
Yeah,
we were talking about the.
We were trying. We take, you know, the plugs. There's all kinds of little plugs in the intake where you might run a temp sensor or something like that. But whatever. Right. But when there's not anything there, you gotta just a button plug in there. And an Allen plug, right, or an Allen. And so I would drill a hole in that thing and then drill a hole through the intake, and I could turn it clockwise to make the hole open up, and then turn it to make it shut. So when they were sniffing, it wouldn't whistle.
Right.
And then when
so Doug told you that?
No, I did.
No, he said that.
Oh, you did that.
I learned that from Morgan McClure.
Yeah, yep.
They were drilling holes through the valves on the head for the valve cover. They were drilling holes through the studs and into the intake and breathing air, pulling air in that way. And they could turn the nuts on the valve cover to shut the holes.
Yep. And you could also do that and have each cylinder drill.
Yeah.
You go to the back of the block and have that plug on the back of the block, same way, and do it after they sniff it. I guess you could do. I guess you could do that. You know,
you can take it. Yeah, you just clocked it.
Yeah. Yep. That's pretty neat, though.
Yeah. I never knew how to. I never was good enough to be able to jet the carburetor though to really take the biggest advantage of it, because we weren't smart enough to know how much air we were pulling in.
Yep.
And then we ended up burning up burning the piston up. So you end up going to Cranifus, and that. How does that go? Who's your crew chief? What's your process there?
Yeah, we when I started off, it was Red Dog. Remember Red Dog?
Yeah.
And, my God!
Yeah,
are you serious?
Yeah, and Tim Brewer.
Buddy Barnes.
Yeah, Buddy Barnes.
Tim
Buddy
Brewer?
Barnes. Yeah, and Tim Brewer and
sounds like a fun bunch.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it was fun. And with Red Dog, it got real fun with him. You know, he's a cool dude, and so when I went over there, I felt really at home. You know what I mean? Because I hung out with him and all this stuff on the lake and
these are your kind of people.
Yeah, I just felt real comfortable with them.
There were some strip clubs visited with that team.
Not that.
They were too old at that point.
Right.
That was earlier in their life.
I doubt it. I doubt it. I bet they were.
And then you had Cranifus. He was from Germany, you know, and he was a mess, you know, just something all the time with Michael. But I loved it there. You know, I went there and we ran decent. And then Roger come in and bought Haas out, and Paul Andrews came over as my crew chief, and then.
The Paul Andrews.
Yeah.
So at this point, did they change the number to 12?
Yeah, they changed it to 12.
And now the car looks just like Rusty's.
Yep.
Right? And you're teammates with Rusty.
Yep, teammates with Rusty.
Teammates with Rusty's a podcast episode.
Are the cars but the cars are not in the same shop?
No.
Y'all could have been anything but teammates.
Right. And it really was a great example of what not to do.
Right.
You know?
It looked like when y'all were on the racetrack, looked like y'all was identical.
Yep.
Like y'all was sharing engineers and resources.
Right.
Absolutely not.
Right, absolutely not. And what's crazy was Rusty was stuck in the 1800 right front and 1200 left front, at Rockingham, places like that. And we'd moved on. We'd got into it because we'd already headed in that direction of soft springs and big springs in the back and
giant sway bars.
Yeah, big old sway bars. And Rusty was the exact opposite. Small sway bar, 300, 325 in the back. Just that pretty much basic deal. So we started moving on because we wanted to do something different than everybody else was doing. So Rusty would come over and we'd run better or qualify good. And he said, "Man, what you got in that? Popping his wrist and what you got in the right front of that thing?" And I didn't want to tell him. I wanted to tell him, but I didn't want to tell him because I knew what he was going to do, And I said, "Well, we got a 500. You ain't got no 500 in that thing right front." He'd go over and look at it, and there's 500 sitting in there, "Well, you got in the right rear." And then I'd say, 500 at that time, ain't no way you got a 500 in that right rear. And he's sitting over a pair of 300s or 275, 300, And then he'd just get mad and leave and walk off. We didn't want to hear nothing else about it, Mm-hmm. And then that started happening all the time. Well, then it started happening but we still run the same. Like we'd go somewhere and he'd have 18 to 12 and I'd have the, fives all the way around or whatever. And we'd run and qualify about the same.
Yeah.
Every time, and he just didn't understand it. Then, he would call Roger and say, "Roger, they're not telling me what they're doing in the car." And then he, thought I was lying to him. And then it became competitive, it became personal again. And then me and him started racing each other harder than we were anybody else, And because we had one team over here, which was my team, that was his team over there, across the street pretty much, and two separate owners, two separate ways of doing things, And we had our own chassis shop, engine shop, and they had their own. So everything was pretty much different, And I was just, holding on to my deal, and he was holding on to his deal,
Sure.
and we just ended up clashing,
When you won at Pocono, you had a big old giant front sway bar.
Yep.
Now at the time it was
Small.
giant.
Yeah, small. Now
Today it's small.
Yep.
So and that I had all of my success, in the Cup Series with that type of setup.
Right.
When we went and won at Atlanta in 04, I was standing on the intro stage and Mark Martin come up to me and he goes, "What do you think about your car?" And I was like, "We ain't gonna run good. I got a 2-inch front sway bar. Ain't no freaking way it's gonna turn.
Right.
I don't know what we're doing." He goes, "Well, you might be the first guy to win with a 2-inch sway bar at Atlanta." And I'm like,
right.
"Ain't no way. It ain't gonna turn. I don't know what we're doing." And
Right.
But like y'all were kind of the first ones to really start pulling that kind of stuff, going that way.
Yep.
Dad was the same way. When I was a rookie, we went to Indy. I drove his car. He drove mine in the middle of the test. And he's like, "Your car ain't going to work. It don't roll. It don't turn." His car's all over the damn place, left
Right.
front way in the air. And I'm
Yep.
thinking, man, this thing sucks driving this thing. It's got a
Yep.
tiny front sway bar and just rocking all over the place.
Yep.
And my car was all pinned down. And he was right. Like that day, that race,
Yep.
40 laps into the run, he drove past me because my car
Right.
quit turning. But we ended up figuring it out. But so y'all were, I don't know who else might have been doing it, but y'all were one of the teams that brought in that soft front stuff, big
Yep.
sway bar, and you end up going to Pocono, perfect place for it, and
Yep.
and putting the bumper to Dad. Nobody did that.
Right.
So that's probably your marquee win, would you say?
Oh, for sure.
One people
Yep.
remember, even today we still see images on Twitter of
Right.
Dad going by you flipping the bird or whatever
Right.
he was doing.
Right.
Yeah.
We
and
still wonder what that was.
yeah, still not. It's really grainy. I can't
Yeah.
quite make it out. But
Man, and that day there, man, was like, first of all, he and I run like fourth and fifth all day, and you know as well as I do how he would do you. Like when you come up through the sport back then, in the late '90s and all this stuff, even a little about mid '90s for me. When I said Earnhardt approved earlier, I meant that because him and Dave Marcus, a couple of them guys, would always mess with you, just try and mess with you. And if you stood your ground with them, and you didn't lose it when he got by you, or you didn't, nothing happened, then you were accepted. I felt like, he was like the leader. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that day there, we're running fourth and fifth all day long, and it's funny because I'd get him loose. We're playing around basically, because we had fourth, fifth place car, and of course Rusty was dominating. He was running up front, and he running really good. And we're sitting back there fourth, fifth. And he'd get me loose, I get him loose, and we'd ride for a while and just doing that, making laps. Then the caution came out. We were good about taking 2 tires all the time. Like I was never afraid because my pit crew wasn't as good as Rusty's, and he'd always put 4 on no matter what. So the caution comes out, and he's like, "What are you gonna do, man? What are you gonna do?" on my radio, And I said, "I don't know. What are you gonna do?" I already kind of knew what we were gonna do because we pitted, kind of early, and then the caution came out at the end. And I was like, he said, man, put on forward, go forward, put on forward, whatever you got to do. Because he was scared to death to do too,
Who?
Rusty.
Y'all could talk to each other?
Yeah, we talked to each other.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we're talking to each other on the backstretch. And he's like, what are you going to do? So we're talking back and forth. And I said, he's trying to convince me to put on forward.
Yeah.
And because he knew if I did that, he'd come out in front of me. So I come down pit road, and I didn't have to say nothing on the radio. I already knew what was going to happen. Pulled in the pits, boom, we put rights on, and boom, we took back off, I'm going down pit road, and it's real quiet, man. I don't see nobody else pulling out, just us. And I keep going, man, just one more. All of a sudden, your dad goes right in front of us like this. I thought, well, it couldn't have been a better one, So now he and I are first and second with 2 tires, both of us, There's a few cars in between us, then it got to Ricky Rudd and Jarrett and them guys that put on forward.
Yep.
And Rusty's about 14th with 4 on, And
jeez.
so, yeah, he was pissed because he thought everybody's gonna put on forward, So me and your dad take off, and I knew as soon as we took off, I'm like, if I tried to pass him anytime in between, cause we already been doing this all day, just playing, and so if I pass him any other time, he's going to get me loose. I got to time this just right, And I wanted to get away from Ricky and them guys. They were coming, and get away from everybody behind us. Me and him just sitting there riding, just 1 and 2. And it's been a great day, Everything's going good. Now we're just going to finish second, And so it comes down right down to the end, and I would shift more than everybody else did if I wanted to. I had the option I could shift. I forgot what ratio they had. Like I downshifted into one, and I could shift again at the tunnel turn if I wanted to. And that was pretty much early before anybody started doing that too, So I left it, shifted normal. And I knew I had that option, and I tried it a couple of times. So we go down to 1 and 2, and I'm about a couple cars behind him down the back stretch. We get ready to go on the tunnel turn. I already knew what I was going to do. I was going to, downshift and make a run at it, and that was it, But driving up behind him and getting him loose wasn't going to happen. You know what I mean? You just, what I'm talking about. You can do whatever you would try to do in this last corner. He ain't going to budge, And so we go through the tunnel turn, and I downshift, and when I did, it just got he pushed off a little bit, and I got to run like crazy, I thought it just, still this day, I'm like, I never forget how that thing run down that short chute, and it took off running, and I'm driving up on him. Part of me thought, well, he ain't going to budge him, so I was just going up there and just nudge him, make it look like, here I am, I'm right behind you. You're going to win, but I'm right behind you. And as I started getting closer to him, I seen his car rolled over, looking like you saw it was all rolled over like this, and I seen the left rear coming up, so I just stayed right on him. My stuff sitting there bouncing, and I just kept driving closer to him. When I did, I seen the back end step out. So I just, and he would have done the same thing.
It didn't take much.
No, so
he was already loose.
Right, he's already loose. So I stayed right there, and he just goes boom like that, and that's just like a God sent thing, man. I'm telling you, I was like, I couldn't believe what just happened in front of my eyes. Then we take off and win the race. And then as soon as I crossed start finish line, I thought, man, what in the hell am I going to say about this? I knew it was coming after that. I knew this is going to be bad right here. So I come back around, and he's doing the flip me off and setting the other, and he's right beside me. I knew he was pissed, And here's how dumb I was, but this is the way I was back then. I'm not this way now, I promise you. But so I go down the front stretch, and all the fans, it's all Earnhardt fans everywhere. Well, I go down the end of the front stretch, I turn around. I'm just going to drive back in front of y'all because they're all throwing beer cans and stuff. When I turned around and went and drove back in front of them again, the whole front straightaway was covered with bottles and beer bottles. And I thought, man, what am I going to say, And Peter Suspenzo said, just tell him that you just want to rattle his cage a little bit. That's what he told Earnhardt. Told Labonte,
Yeah.
Perfect, So I get out, well, I just want to rattle his cage a little bit, all cocky and everything, Fans were throwing stuff, booing, everything else. And I had to sneak our way out there. I had to ride in the back of a rental car and just, hucker down the back of it like 2 hours after the race just to make it out there, And the whole time I'm thinking, man, I do not want to go. I forgot where we had to go the next week. I don't want to show up there, I didn't know if I should call him right, because you know how he is, But what was so cool about it was for him to want everything he's done and done everything he's done in his career. At that point in time, I'm thinking, he's gonna be pissed to start with. But when I ran into him at the driver's introduction, walked right into him. Well, we're going in like this the door
the next week,
like it, and he's got a big smile on his face. He grabs me in the headlock, and how he does that, and does this little deal on my head. And I thought, man, I looked at him. I said, hell, I thought you was gonna be madder than that, He said, I wasn't mad at you, man. He said, that's part of it, just so cool about it. And he goes, but he said, one thing that pissed me off. He said all that you said after the race, what pissed me off. I guess then he just punched around on me and we walked on in, but. The thing was cool about that was Dale Earnhardt. You know what I mean? And I told him that day too. I said, look, it's Dale Earnhardt. Somebody I looked up to as when I was a kid racing. And I said my hero. And it's the last lap of the last corner, and we're racing for the lead. I know he knows what that feels like somewhere down the line.
Yeah.
I said, but I drove up behind him, and I go, when I got behind him, he lost it. He said something like that. He said, I didn't lose I didn't, you hit me, I said the other, you know. But, you know, that was just a moment for me, you know. But what I realized after that was that he was so humble about it and so cool about it. You know, he was the intimidator on the racetrack, but yet that showed me right there he had a huge heart, you know. And he'd worked me up through all those years, you know, got me loose and about spun me and this, that, and the other. Mm-hmm. But he took it, you know, he dished it out, but he could take it. You know?
I never even thought the bird was really out of anger, right? Like,
right.
I mean, did you think it was? Like, was he genuinely pissed?
Oh, I mean, I'd say.
I think in the moment.
Yeah, in the moment. Yeah,
okay. It's like any driver, right? You're like, oh damn, I just got moved. You know?
Yeah. Especially the way it happened. I think he was definitely pissed off at me. But the following week, man, he was just. I wasn't expecting that. Yeah. You know, for him to be so cool about it and done everything he's done in his career, and to look at me and say that, you know, and just smile, and as a true champion, I thought, you know what I mean, to be able to take it and dish it out and take it too, you know.
So at this point, are you like, you know, my ass, I'm here.
Right.
This is working out.
Right.
Right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Is the friction between you and Rusty always there and kind of making things harder than they have to be? Is it? Because I feel like I would not want to be Rusty's teammate.
Well, I don't know why you wouldn't want to be.
I just – and he's like the A driver, always going to be the A driver. And you're never going to be right about anything that needs to happen, any direction that they need to go in, or anything new that might need to happen.
Yep.
And if you're not on his side, you know, you could get moved on.
Yep.
You know, shipped out.
Yep.
He was competitive. He was hard-headed. Daddy and him had a rivalry that, like, they could be friends, boy, but when you got to the racetrack, he was hard to be friends with.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he just was about, you know, that's fair. He was about himself.
Right.
So I imagine that must have been frustrating at times to have to deal with that constantly.
Right. And it was constant. And
did y'all ever have like a words?
Well, what was weird was, like you were saying, we'd go in to sit in on a meeting, you know, with both teams at the same meeting, you know, Roger would be there. And me and Rusty would just be like normal as can be. You know, wouldn't say, I mean, hey, Rusty, what's going on? Hey, man, what's going on? Like everything was fine. And then we get to the racetrack, you know, and then it started, you know, and I was to the point about, like you said, at that time, I thought, well, heck, I'm winning races, doing good. I mean, this is what I needed, you know, the Penske deal and this, that, and the other, and beat Earnhardt, you know, and for that deal with Earnhardt to happen with Rusty, because Rusty wanted to be Dale Earnhardt, you know what I mean? He wanted he wanted everything Dale had, you know, and you know that, you know,
sure,
which everybody did, you know. So for me to do that to Earnhardt, that really, I'm sure somewhere down the line he got, you know, made it worse. But Rusty, I mean, I think he's a great guy today, you know, and
he is
a super guy, and but yeah, we go to the racetrack and they just hate each other. I mean, like Daytona, your dad won the Daytona 500. I'm pushing him all day long, you know. And at the last lap, come out of the backstretch, and I was running second. Pull out past him, Rusty was running like fifth and was supposed to come with me. You know, Rusty's going with you is what he said on the radio. I yank out like this, and Rusty peeks out, boom, right back in. I'm like, here we go. Ended up like fifth, you know, on the last lap, you know. So, and then when that started happening, then I started doing, you know, right back to him. You know, I didn't help him, he didn't help me. And then we go to meetings. Hey, Rusty, how you doing? Man, I'm doing great, man. How are you doing? You know, and then it just, you know, the media got a hold of it, you know, made it worse than what it was. But by far, I mean, I wished I'd have never – I kind of got involved in that, well, if he's going to do that, we're going to do this. And my whole team got like that. You know, our whole team got real defensive on we're going to do what we want to do. We don't – they do what they want to do, and we'll leave it like that, you know. Yeah. And Roger let that go on for about a year, and then – he was going to put a stop to it because it was not the best way to do a teammate situation. You know, have two cars just totally competitive like that, just at each other, and, you know, each one of you going to do your own deal, you know.
It's the season of all the more comfort and joy at Cracker Barrel. You'll taste it in our returning holiday favorites, country fried turkey and cinnamon swirl French toast, sweet, savory, and so much goodness. And feel it in our Old Country store, too, where you'll find can't get it anywhere else gifts for everyone on your holiday list. Come home for the holidays. Come to Cracker Barrel.
Did Ray call you to talk about hiring you? So the rumor or the thought is okay, Dodge is coming. Ray's going to get a team. Dodge is going to give Ray a team, man. Right. Boof. Give him all this money, and he's got this amazing opportunity. Like, they're just going to pour money into the sport, and he's just going to spend it.
Right.
And did he call you and say, hey, we're thinking about hiring you?
Yeah, after he'd already started.
Right.
Yeah, it was after that, and then Rusty and I were bickering and this, that, and the other. So
So-
everybody kind of knew something was going to happen between.
So
us,
with the bickering going on between you and Rusty, you knew that your days were numbered
Yeah, pretty much.
at Penske's.
Rusty come to me one day, I think in '98, and he said, at Pocono, and he said, the 12 car is to do nothing but help the 2 car win a championship. And I started this deal, and I created this deal, and I can end this deal. Is what he told me. And I'm leading the points. We're first in the points, and he's telling me this, and he's like 5th. I'm thinking, at that point in time, you tell a driver who basically didn't really care what Rusty thought about it. At that time, I really didn't. I was just racing and want to be a racer. And that motivated me. That just made me want it more. But then after time, I started noticing, well, here we go. I'm getting shifted back, and all these things are happening. And, the teams are fighting, and we're at Vegas, and we're running 4th and 5th early in the race, like 20 laps into the race, whatever it was. And I get underneath Rusty, and the caution comes out behind us. Everybody's wrecking behind us, and we hadn't been running very many laps. And we go down the back stretch, and I'm still like this, and he's outside of me, and my spotter's saying, back off, let off, caution's out, caution. Well, I'm looking over, Rusty ain't lifting, I ain't lifting, because you raced back to the caution.
Oh, that's right. You'd race back to the caution.
Yeah, so we're staying in the gas, no reason, 4th and 5th, right? No reason at all we should be doing this. And I knew it, and he knew it. He's not lifting, I'm not lifting. We're running side by side down back. Going to turn 3, whoa, caution's in turn 1, caution turn 1. Go through 3 and 4, we're still side by side, all the way to the start-finish line, racing each other. Well, then we go in there and we back off of where they blew up going into the turn 1. They're down there working on the wreck, right, or getting ready to. Here come me and Rusty still racing, sliding. Yeah. We get in the oil slide and take both of us out. We're both sitting in the wall, like just backed into each other like that, And I'm like, and you talking about silent, and you're thinking, oh my God, And I think he was leading the points at that point in time, and then, so we, that's just the way it was, Crazy.
You were looking to leave though. Then he says that wasn't going to last forever. That
right.
with the Rusty thing. Like did you think you would get fired, or did you think you were just going to leave and because you were contending, you're winning races,
right? But I was dumb, stupid, and didn't have really nobody tell me, what I should be doing or not doing. Just making decisions just based on
instinct.
Y'all had a penalty at Talladega with the fuel. It's big, 150 points and $150,000 or something. Did that play any role in like turning things south?
Probably a little bit. It Roger doesn't like anything going on, as far as cheating and all that stuff. They've been caught doing things fast, whatever. That just wasn't allowed, and not sure what all went down on the fuel deal. We sat on the pole and they did a fuel sample. We were fine. After the race, they checked all our fuel, whatever, and they said that they found something in it or didn't find nothing in it, but somebody told them or something that we were running fuel. And so that turned into a 2-week big ordeal, and Roger's involved, and they're doing investigations on everything and all this stuff NASCAR is. And then so we go to California, basically shouldn't have been there. If they suspended us, we wouldn't have been there. But they didn't suspend us because we wasn't clear on what happened.
Yeah.
Go to California and win the race at California. And then, I'm not saying after that, but it just seemed like that was just another definitely a mark on us,
You wrecked at Indianapolis in practice and had to sit out 2 weeks with a concussion.
Yep.
And they said, I guess in the report was that you were unconscious when they got to the car. Is that what happened?
Oh, yeah, I definitely did that. And that's something else that we can talk to you about one day on concussions because I know exactly what you're talking about there. And, I woke up. We had a great car, man. And Saturday morning practice went out and wrecked and hit driver's side, straight into the ending, like 200 mile or whatever. I actually woke up just for a second. I remember this plain as day. I just opened my eyes up. I had no idea. It'd be like us talking right now. And then 2 weeks go by. And when you wake up 2 weeks, you just remember being on the show. And that's it. You don't remember nothing happened in between the 2 weeks,
right.
And so I wake up like this, and my head was duct taped down to a stretcher. And I'm looking at all these people looking over me. Didn't know where I was at or nothing. I just went, well, I'm going to go back to sleep. I thought I was dreaming, So I shut my eyes back to sleep, and I remember that plain as day. And then next thing I know, I do it again. I'm in this thing making all this noise, the whatever it
Helicopter.
is. Or the where they run in the MRI.
Oh, at the
hospital. Yeah. So I wake up in there and I'm hearing all this bam, 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 all this noise and stuff. Go back to sleep, and then I remember all of a sudden I woke up in the hospital, in the bed, where they was all at. I could hear people talking. I couldn't say nothing. You hear people having conversation.
Damn, man.
Yeah, that's how bad it was. So then I woke up, and when I woke up, it was like, okay, I figured, okay, now I realize I've been wrecked. Real quick, trying to put everything together. And I knew I was going to bullshit my way out of there somehow because, if it was that bad, you know how it is, they're going to keep you,
Yeah.
And I thought that I just went to practice, wrecked, went to the hospital. Now I need to get back because we got a happy hour, Not realize I've been there all day, didn't even know it. So everything just started coming to real quick, and then they was going to ask me questions, what happened. I didn't have a clue what happened, but I was going to make up something. I was like, I got to say something, and I kept trying to ask my wife, what happened? Did I blow a tire or what? Didn't know. And then all of a sudden it's just like a light come on. I went boom, woke up, and I ate a little bit, and I was fine. Got to leave.
Felt better.
Felt normal, and everything was good. I just didn't remember what all went on. But I remember going back to the racetrack thinking, okay, I got to hurry up because I got happy hour. And I get back to the racetrack and it's about dark and everybody's gone, and I just lost the whole day. Don't even realize what happened.
Yeah. So how did they determine you needed to be out 2 weeks?
Just because of that, because I was knocked out, and I only stayed out a week actually.
Oh.
It was 2 weeks total, but they were just afraid at that time. I think Terry Labonte hit his head and was dizzy. Racing.
Yeah, he went and rode. He had some problems with them rocks. What do they call them things? He thought he had a concussion, or he had a crash that shook all that stuff up, and it creates
the vertigo.
Vertigo.
Yeah.
And he went and rode roller coasters all day long to reset all that balance in his brain, and that so the vertigo would quit.
Right.
But it was, I think, from an impact. But it was a unique situation. But yeah, so are doctors like, hey man? So it might have been Dr. Petty, Jerry Petty, or somebody.
Petty,
He's like, hey man, you're not gonna run this week, and you're like, damn, really?
Right. And I felt great.
Yeah.
I don't.
You didn't argue with him?
Not really. I just thought, if that's what I need to do, that's what I need to do. But it was just weird because I felt good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, man, there's nothing wrong with me. I wasn't getting dizzy, but maybe I'm going to,
Yeah.
And so I stayed out the week, and then Kyle Petty drove our car at Indy actually, and then another guy drove it at the road course. But I just didn't understand, and didn't understand anything about concussions or nothing at that point in time. But
do you look back on that moment as is having any kind of effect on your term ending with Penske? Did they look at you as like damaged goods or anything like that, or was that not even?
No, I don't think so. I think they did maybe towards the end, or something would go wrong. You're obviously, how that goes. They're always saying, well, he hit his head too many times or whatever. But yeah, Indy was definitely a changing point in my career. I feel like, just because of that, and you know how it is. If you get a wreck and you're knocked out, it don't take long. Everybody's like, he hit his head. The word spreads, So
Rusty alone.
Yeah.
Rusty. I don't know about that boy right there.
Right.
Yeah, a couple screws
Ever
loose.
since that crash.
Yeah, ever since that crash, he ain't been the same.
Yep. And that happens all the time, or happened back then all the time,
Mm-hmm.
And so then I went, when I started with the Ray, and I finally won again because I started doubting myself, I thought maybe something is wrong, and I don't know, just one of those things. We ended up winning again.
You got back
after
to
that.
Yeah, you got back to good. Did the split from Roger, was that pretty reasonable?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, obviously I didn't. I wanted to go at that point in time.
You were ready to go to Rays.
Yeah, looking back, that's probably one of the dumbest things I've ever done.
Was go to Rays.
Or leave
Roger.
Roger. Yeah, because they were trying to pull it all into one.
Do you think you could have made it work?
I think I could have if I started earlier in what I did. Because he bought Michael out, so now Michael's gone, and we were all fighting for keeping our stuff like we wanted it. And then I kind of stood up for the team, feeling like, and then should have just played the deal with Roger and then been done with it.
You should have adapted better, to what they're doing. You were saying that you were about to say that they were about to pull the team. You're saying all the way up until the end with you and Penske, y'all were still in separate shops,
right?
Because then when did he buy Michael out?
It was like a year or two later, from when they started,
Okay, so even though he bought Michael out, the shops were still different.
Right.
In different places.
Yep.
But he was on the cusp of consolidating all that and bringing it all together. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there fighting it all along the way, going, man, we're outrunning them. I didn't want to go back in time on our setups and chassis and all that stuff, and looking out for the guys. I had a great relationship with my team, and I was like, man, most of them's going to be gone, because they were going to get rid of our chassis shop, and then it just turned into one thing.
I imagine the culture differences between those two shops would have been
yeah,
it's believable to have wanted to defended your team. I mean, I don't think that's not outside the box really.
Well, it'd be like you were talking about, and we done this with Rusty a couple times. Like when you drove your dad's car and it was all rolled over, you're thinking, man, I don't want to go back that direction at that point in time, and that's kind of the way I was the whole time,
So Casey Atwood was driving the 19 car. They move him. I think he went to the 7.
Right.
And you end up getting put in that car. It took a while to get going.
Yeah, it did.
And I know that you felt like at one point you were either going to get fired or quit.
Right.
in the first year with Ray.
Yeah. And because I thought, I talked to Ray, and it was, I knew Ray was a little different as far as the way he does things, and everything. But
How would we all like Ray? But what do you mean by that?
Well, just you just hear stories, the way he runs the team, and and just strict things that he done, this, that, and the other, and just didn't know, just didn't know. I knew that I had a pretty good deal over here with Penske. It was pretty open, you could, race like we wanted to race, and Roger was a great guy and everything else. But going with Ray, it was just like, like you're saying, it's a big deal. Dodge is coming on board. They got 2 cars instead of 1, and I just didn't know what to expect, And I think Ray thought that just changing the driver out would be, the fix. And Casey was a good driver, that. It wasn't. I got over there, and it was like, we're running the big springs, running the small bars, the stuff that we just went through 2 years ago over here,
Yeah.
We'd have to look at Ray's setup sheets with him and Gordon ran. And you look in there, and it was like 18 to 12, 1,000, and 300, 325 in the back of it. I'm like, oh my God, that's how far behind we were. And eventually, it got all better, but it took a while. Like the first 6 months, I was just like, I didn't know what to think because I really didn't. It was just a big deal growing and wasn't running good and didn't know what to do after that.
So you end up getting back to Victory Lane. You won at Richmond, which put you in the playoffs that year. I think what year was that? 04?
04.
That was the first. That was the first ever chase, I believe.
The first chase.
Yeah. I remember that was dramatic.
Yeah, you kind of come in. Yeah, it was like a 12th round knockout.
It's what it felt like,
Yeah,
right?
right. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Came in you had to win the race to get in, and you won it.
Yep. And we had to win the race and lead the most laps. Whatever it took to do that. And before that, I say that the first 6 months with Ray was kind of weird. It was, but yet it set us up to be great friends after that. You know what I mean? So we were really getting along great after the first 6 months there. Mm-hmm. He started realizing that we need to work on our stuff, our motors, everything else. So he just basically everybody put their heads down and took off working, and that led us up to that point there to the chase. Where we were going to get in it. But that was a hard thing to. As well as I do. If anybody says, "Hey man, what you got to do to get in the chase?" You say, "Well, I got to lead the most laps and win the race." That's pretty hard to do, know. And so we all week long I felt good about it. I was like, we're going to do it. We can do it. We can do it. We can do it because we were like 14th in the points or whatever. And that whole weekend was just a weird deal. We started off and it just the car worked perfect. And everything was going great. We didn't qualify that good, but we had a good car in practice and knew we could run good. And immediately went to the front and led all the laps and won the race and got in. And that was that's probably really one of not my number one win, but that was definitely the number 2 win right there.
Yeah, I remember you getting out of the car in Victory Lane, and I don't know that I think you were much happier that night than you might have been in Pocono, even though Pocono might be number 1 on your list. That was pretty amazing accomplishment, just like you say, because of all the things you had to do in the moment, making the playoffs. Now you're part of this sort of fraternity that moves forward and continues to have a shot at winning the championship. So, I remember I've never talked to Ray about I've since gotten to know Ray pretty good over the last couple of years, and we've done some things together, and he's a neat guy.
Right.
Certainly goes about life his own way. I did not know how he was to drive for, but I was there in the garage, and it felt like, this is my opinion, not yours. You don't have to agree with me if you don't want to, but I felt like that he came in with a bunch of he was very excited, very thrilled about this opportunity to start this brand new team and be the guy for a manufacturer, which was Dodge.
Right.
Gets his thing going, wins some races, has some success. And then I feel like that he fell out of love with that.
Right.
And that he, owning a business, a restaurant, a race team, all that sounds amazing. Think, winning races, you're dreaming about, man, we're going to win a championship. We could win races. We could do this. We could do that. Sounds awesome. But when you really get down to it and you're managing all the little problems, it's not as much fun as it's not as much fun as you think. And I think that he got to a point, or I'm just going to assume that he got to a point to where he kind of was over it, and you could see some of the performance, I guess, in the cars and your own performance on the racetrack, all that kind of started to fade a little bit. And he had other interests going on. Him and Erin were seeing each other. She had a career that she was trying to get going. He wanted to be a big part of that and was racing with her. a lot of people were tuning in to see her race. You know, she was a female race car driver with possibly legit talent, so there was a bunch of interest there. So he was having a hard time flying under the radar around all that. Do you think that he sort of had kind of fallen out of love, you know, the idea of being a championship car owner in the Cup Series?
I wouldn't say falling out of love, but kind of that. But it just seemed like his interest, for some reason, I know that when we first started that deal, like when I first went over there, Ray always had in the back of his mind that he would never be a Penske or a Hendrick.
Yeah.
Motorsports. You know.
What do you mean?
Well, I couldn't get that because I'm sitting there looking at all of our stuff. We had the best of everything. You know, 2 big shops. You know, 3 at the end.
Yeah.
Had everything you want. You know, and he'd always keep in the back of his mind like, well, but Hendrick's got this, and Penske's got that. You know,
he felt like he was never going to measure up.
Right. And that's the way I felt like. You know, from what I understood. You know, just all the time. You know, and I'm like, I didn't see it that way. I don't think anybody ever seen it that way because we had a good deal going on. You know, and but he's always had that. You know, that's just the way Ray is too. He wants to be the best, but he's also realizes that what it takes to be the best. You know, to get there. And then Aaron thing and then whatever happened on that deal, I'm not sure if it had anything to do with it, but it just seemed like all of a sudden it just went downhill and don't know why. You know,
so
understand why. You know,
yeah. Help me understand that there were 2 cars. You and Bill still driving, right?
Right.
Or no, Bill is now in a 3rd car.
Right.
A test car.
Yeah, Casey went away and then Bill started in that car. You know, went back to that car after Casey Kane came on.
Casey Kane and you are teammates. Mm-hmm. Bill's showing up running a limited schedule, right?
Right.
And it's not a full-time.
No.
And then they're going to give Casey your team, and you're going to get the 91 test team.
Right. I'm going to the Bill's deal that he was running.
What's happening to Casey's guys? That's just going to go away?
Yeah, they kind of – I don't know if they went away or just –
Yeah, but you knew this test team was a shell of what a Cup, legitimate Cup contender needed to be.
Right.
And you were like, this is BS.
Right. Yeah, pretty much. And because I watched Bill run bad in it. Bill went from winning races in a 9 car, running great, and I knew it wasn't Bill Elliott.
Yeah.
He does a good job, and Casey didn't struggle, but he wasn't, we were running a little bit better than he was at the time and gaining on it every week.
Who's your crew chief?
Well, I had a couple. Kenny Francis was one of them, and we had several over there. We switch up quite a bit, move stuff around, but Kenny was with Bill when he was running good. Kenny came to us when we were running good, and then Tommy Baldwin came a part of Casey's deal, and then
Tommy went away, and
then they just switched.
They're going to give Kenny to Casey,
right? Which was a good combination. They did great together, but it was all of our stuff that on the 19 that we had,
Yeah.
And so then I went to the 91 or whatever the number was at the time, and didn't run good, just running bad,
real bad,
yeah.
And so then you make the comments about, I can't tell you what Ray thinks because I don't see him. And all that blows up in you.
Well, and one reason why that happened was because when my team went away, okay, they're over here with Casey's deal, and we're in the same shop, but I'm willing to do whatever we got to do to build this team back up or whatever we got to do to make it work, and I just wasn't seeing Ray, Right. I mean, Ray used to be on top of all that stuff, he wouldn't let it happen. And if the 9 was running bad, he'd be on the 9 box. If the 19, he'd be back and forth trying to help both our deals, know. And all of a sudden, I'm with the 91 now. I'm sitting over there going, man,
I ain't getting no help.
Yeah, where'd he go,
Yeah.
And I kind of knew what a lot of people were thinking, and I kind of knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say nothing, but I knew that if we got new motors coming out and I'm running old ones and my new one that I should have got over here in the ARCA car, you know what I mean? That makes you mad.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean?
Because Evernham Racing was actually fielding that car in ARCA, right?
Right.
So
exactly.
Erin was driving a Evernham car.
Yeah, she was our developmental driver.
That's right.
So
she's getting new motors.
Right. And getting a lot more attention than what, as far as the team itself.
Yeah.
They were getting a lot of stuff to make sure she ran good,
Yeah.
So
you help me understand what happens, y'all. You're going to get fired in the middle of the year?
Yeah, I wasn't planning on it, but here's something else that happened that I was going to tell you the deal. And I made a big mistake.
Something about a picture.
Yeah, I made a huge mistake. And
now listen, I know what you're getting. I know the story you're getting ready to tell, and I want to help you out. So you made this picture of Ray's wife with you.
The end of the year.
Yeah.
Right, when they're going to give all our stuff to Casey the next year, right?
So this switch is happening in the off season.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Yes.
All right. And we go to the banquet in New York.
Yep.
And I love Mary to death. Mary was Ray's wife. And we're in the limo. And we got the cameras out, this camera. She said, "Oh, take one of me." I took a picture of her, and she said, "Will you blow that up for me?" And
it's just her, you and her.
No, we're all together. We're all together.
Who's we're all?
Me, Ray, and everybody's around each other.
All of you are in the picture.
No, she's just in the picture. We're
by herself.
They're on the limo.
They're all in the limo together. Yeah. And she tells me, "Hey, take a picture." So I took a picture of her, boom, like that. And she said, "Blow it up for me, and give it to Ray during the Christmas party," which was a couple weeks later. So I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah."
Was it a good picture?
Yeah, great picture.
Great picture.
You
took a hell of a picture.
Yeah, I took a hell of a picture. I took a hell of a picture. So I blew it up and did what she said to do, right? Blew it up. It was about, I don't know, it was probably about that big.
And framed it.
And I thought, man, she's going to be excited. He's going to be excited getting this. Well, I didn't know what they knew at that time.
She knew it?
Obviously, And
she set you up.
Yeah,
you think?
I think just to get at him, but not to set me up personally, but just to, I guess, make something happen. So we go to the Christmas party, and she's not there. And it's only a couple weeks ago before that, I got my big picture, we're all talking during a little speech. And I walk up on stage and Ray, and I said, "Here, Ray, I got something for you."
In front of everybody.
In front of everybody. And he opens up, it's a picture of Mary smiling. A great picture of her, And I thought it was weird she wasn't there anyway.
Did he smile?
Sort of, but not really. It just kind of
awkward.
Okay, yeah, awkward. And I felt awkward after I gave it to him.
Why did it not ring? Why did it not dawn on you?
Because I didn't know that they weren't together.
Yeah, but damn, why would you give him a picture of his wife? What the hell? That's the weirdest thing to give somebody. Even if she said to do it.
She owned my car at the time. She was the car owner.
Oh, my gosh. I would have still been like, man, I just don't feel comfortable.
I didn't. I really didn't,
But you could have asked some questions.
It seems like to me.
There's a follow-up.
Right.
It seems like to me that you might have been like okay with this if it pissed him off, right? Part of you was like, you know what? If this is what I think it is, so be it.
Yeah, because I was kind of pissed too.
Right?
Yeah, right. You're probably right about that a little bit. So I thought, but I still didn't know for sure.
Right.
I thought it was weird why she wanted to give it to me, but I wasn't afraid to piss him off either. So I went, "Hey, here's look at this," and he acted weird, and then I went to drive for my new team. The new team he had for me.
Boys.
The 91 guys, and it didn't work out very good. And then I'm gonna back up another couple steps here. I was at Pocono, and Aaron came over early in the deal, and he said, "Will you help her around Pocono?" Sure. She comes with my motorhome. "Hey, Aaron, what are you doing?" I said, "I'll just tell you. I'll make a lap around there in my head and tell you how I do it, where I downshift and stuff." And I'm starting to tell her. She said, "Well, really? Going into one of you downshift there to this, that, and that?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "Well, Ray said that downshift here, way after you got in the corner." I said, "Well, some people do, but we all kind of knew that." There again, a great guy. I'm not saying anybody, but he would be involved in some of our conversations about driving, me and Casey and Bill and all of us. Some stuff you just leave, like your dad talking about the setups and all that. You just took it upon, he took it and went on with it.
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, Aaron, sometimes you gotta, if he says anything, you gotta use your own judgment, and just if you feel comfortable shifting in wherever, do it there." She said, "What are you saying, that I shouldn't listen to Ray?" And I said,
"Uh-oh."
Yeah, I'm thinking, but there again, I didn't know what they knew. You know what I mean? So I'm like, well, me and Casey, Bill, you kind of take things in. So I shouldn't listen to Ray? Not all the time. I said, maybe sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. You just make your own. And I seen this look on her face, and I'm thinking, but now he's a great one to listen to. Just help back it up. Well, I didn't realize it when at that point in time, what was going on. You know what I mean? So then, and she leaves the motorhome, obviously, and when you go back and tell Ray anything like that, especially if you're real close to him, closer than I knew they were close. Ray Jeremy said, "Not listen to you. I shouldn't listen to you." I could imagine that conversation.
There's no context that makes that appropriate or well received.
Right, especially if they're closer than I thought they were. And just knowing Ray, so that happened. The picture happened, and then the media happened. And at that point in time,
you had pushed a lot of buttons.
Yeah. And put him on the Chicago Tribune, whatever it was, a full page picture of him, and I hate it. I really do, because I really wasn't intended on none of that. I was just kind of upset at the time, and then at certain times, not at Aaron, but I knew after the fact when it all went down, I was like, well, that's probably one of the things that pissed him off really good.
So the last race with Ray at Indy, you got black flagged on, like, what the hell was that? Do you know? You remember all that?
Yeah, we qualified like fourth, and I had a feeling that was going to be my last race. I just felt it the way the Dodge guys were and everybody's around me. So we start at fourth, we take off, and the car's terrible. You ever had one of those days where you think you got a good car, and you take off and you just straight backwards.
Sure.
You know, we've all had them. So I get in the wall and get in the wreck a little bit, but wasn't that bad. It was enough for me to fender side up. And we worked on it all day, and I was bound and determined I wasn't going to run bad that day. So I just kept running hard. And we kept working on it, getting better. And we're actually, now at the end of the race, we're running pretty good, you know, bandaged up and everything else. All of a sudden, we had pitted, and about 5 laps later, I hear, bring it in or they're going to black flag you. I thought, man, something's, you know, hanging off the car or the fender's off of it or something, you know, what's going on? And I started asking questions. Bring it in, they're going to black flag you. Okay. So I come down pit road, it was pulling in my pit stall, and nobody come over the wall. I'm just sitting there on pit road like this by myself, real quiet, and I thought, well, if they're not going to say nothing, I'm not going to say nothing. I don't know what the deal is, you know. Mm-hmm. And we're just sitting there, nobody's saying nothing, quiet for like 3 minutes, it seemed like. Everybody's going by, and I'm sitting there, not the first crew members come over the wall. Then I hear, Ray said just park.
Well, that's so weird.
Yeah. I said, okay. So I just got out of it and walked off, you know, and that's the last time I was sitting in my
You got out
car.
of it on pit road?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got out and walked off, and then I knew right then it was over, you know. But that whole black flag deal is a whole nother conversation, you know, now looking back, you know.
I guess, you know, that the next week I don't know, did you go back to the shop ever again?
No.
No, you never went back.
Yeah.
And so you and Ray hadn't talked since.
Well, he had, I guess, sent a press release out, whatever. I was fired, and this, that, and the other that week, you know. And
oh yeah, because you said you filed a suit against them or something, or
well, because we just extended my contract.
Either get paid or get me back, put me back in the car so I can race, or pay me.
Right.
Was that right?
Yeah, right.
What they end up doing?
Because I was the exclusive driver for the 19 car, and they put Bill in it. If you got a contract, the only way you're going to get through your contract, if we'd have let that go, that's saying that we're okay with it, then it's over, you know. And we just re-signed my contract, and I'm sitting here rest of the year. What am I going to do, you know? And so we did the judgment thing, whatever they do, and we won. Well, we won on Friday that week, and they're getting ready to qualify, and they stopped the 19 car. Nope, you can't qualify, you know. And then until you put your exclusive driver in there, or you know, you pay him his contract, right? Yeah. I didn't want my whole contract. I just wanted enough money to get me through the rest of the year, you know, until I found something. And so then they have to settle, and that's what happened.
Damn.
And then Brian was up there and all that stuff, watching the whole thing, you know.
Yeah. You feel like all that kind of started the.
When you say there was more to the black flag,
yeah,
I know what I think you're insinuating, but I'll just ask you, like, what would be more to the black flag?
At that time, I didn't know what, you know. I didn't even think nothing else about the black flag, just other than he wanted me to park it that day, you know.
Okay, but then what was more to it then?
When everything started going downhill, you know, and then
you think that there was something with NASCAR then? Sort
of, you know. That's what the ex-wife, you know, we had that conversation.
Got it.
You know, started telling me some things that went on.
You got it.
You know?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, Jimmy Spencer has that same accusation, and he said it on our show. That's why I'm saying it. Is it? He thought that Brian black flagged him at somewhere, a race in California, I believe, just out of a personal vendetta or whatever.
Yeah, they had some sort of disagreement. Yeah. So you go drive cars for Bill Davis, Gene Haas, and then your own team.
Right.
And this is just a couple races here and there.
Right.
And that's when you start to feel like, you know, everybody in the garage is turning their back on you. And it's getting harder and harder for you to kind of remain entrenched in the sport.
Right. But I really wasn't thinking, you know, I thought, okay, I can't find a ride or whatever, but I'm still thinking, okay, if I start my own deal, it'd be cool anyway. You know what I mean? So I'll do my own deal, you know, and started that, and then not realizing, I know this sounds crazy, looking back, I could have done a lot of things different, promise you, looking back. And looking back, we showed up at Daytona, and I had Tony Furs, my crew chief, and I had a pretty cool team, but they were all, I wouldn't say redneck, but they were all kind of cool guys, been in sport, older guys, but some of them been in trouble, some of them haven't, you know, cheating or whatever you call it, you know. And so we get the deal going and running. We go to Daytona, and we got a sponsor between the time I bought the stuff and then, or bought the cars and stuff, and then we went to Daytona. It was like a couple-week period. And the sponsor was All Sport, you know, that brand had been in and out of sport. There again, totally not thinking, just head down, trying to get her, go to Daytona. So we're in the Gatorade Dual 125s, wherever it was at the time, running, you know, on the edge of getting in. We had to make the race, you know, finish whatever it is, 9th or whatever. And the whole time we were talking about, you know, there's All Sport on the car and this, that, and the other. And you know, we made the race, obviously made the Daytona 500, but not realizing that, again, you know, that's NASCAR's TV time, not mine, you know, not yours. You know, it's their time. And then we took up a lot of their time with a competitive, you know, the All Sport and this, that, and the other. And you know, and I don't know. I feel like I did a lot of things that weren't politically correct again. you know?
I remember that day and the emotion when you got out of the car and the interview of you making the race and how excited you were, and y'all, I mean, you really had put together a deal that probably a lot of people didn't have a lot of confidence in making the race.
Right.
And y'all were able to do that, which had to been pretty because for a new team, any kind of team that's tight on the budget, you got to make that race.
Right.
That's such a big paying race, and if you don't, it really sets up for a very difficult future going forward.
Yep, and we knew that, you know, and we had a couple weeks to prepare for it, you know, but making the Daytona 500 had to happen, you know, and we put on 2 tires and just went for it at the end and made it, you know, but you're right about that. It was a deal. It was to make it or it was going to be it, you know.
Yeah. So how far had your team gotten when all the drug tests and everything and all that starts happening? Like, what was the potential for that team? Where do you think you would have ended up?
Who knows? You know, probably, you know, shut down somewhere down the line. It was going to be tough. It was a long road ahead of us, and I knew that. And that was the time where there was 60 cars showing up, and you know, a bunch of them was going home. There were starting parks, and I didn't want to do a starting park deal, you know, and just I don't know, just trying everything we could to make, you know, keep it going, keep it working, and you know, we were struggling. You know what I mean? For sure.
Man, you sold all that stuff to some dude. What was his name? I don't even remember.
Was going to the Carter guy out of Georgia.
Yeah. Did you sell it to him?
He bought some of it, then I just auctioned the rest of it off. You know, got rid of it.
Man,
I know it's been a long road.
It has,
and all that was in a short amount of time.
I know
what we were talking about. You know.
Yeah. So when you look back on your career, man, what do you miss?
I miss the racing part. You know, a lot of people ask me that all the time, but do you miss it? You know.
Yeah.
Man, I miss driving that car all the time. I miss the fun times in the garage area. You know, the racing in general. You know what I mean? I don't miss the political part of it because I don't feel like first of all, I was trying to do anything politically incorrect. I just wasn't educated on it, I guess, you know, is the way I look at it, you know. And but looking back now, I would have done things differently as far as that goes. But
have you been to a cup race?
No, I went to one the week after that, and they kicked me out. I was standing on your hauler, actually, on your out in the infield, your hospitality guys hauler, you know.
Really?
Yeah, and they escorted me out.
They made you leave?
Yeah.
What year was that?
2009 in Charlotte.
You have not been back to a cup race since then?
No.
Xfinity race? Truck race?
Nothing.
But
nothing.
But would you be allowed?
No.
Okay, so you're
they
not.
They wouldn't allow me on the facility, on the premises.
Wonder why?
I know that's what's crazy about it all, you know.
Yeah.
And
would you go? Would you want to go?
I'd go. Yeah, I'd probably go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely would. You know,
Yeah.
and like I said, I just want to run the short tracks. You know, if I can just run and modify it again, you know, on some of the NASCAR sanctioned tracks or whatever, that'd be cool. You know.
So I guess let me ask you that. So if the track is sanctioned by NASCAR, you're not allowed to compete at it.
No, because you got
even if it's not a NASCAR series.
If it's not a NASCAR series, I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like the Smart Tour.
Yeah, the Smart Tour I could run.
You could run. Okay.
Yep.
Man.
That's why I ended up in run a lot of dirt races because there's not any sanctioned dirt tracks. You know.
When did we sit down? 11 o'clock.
Yeah, something like that.
So it's like 2 o'clock.
Is it 2 now?
It's 1:49.
You're kidding me.
You gonna be okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Somewhere you got.
I might have to pee in a minute.
You're the record now. You've got the record on this one.
You do have the record. We've had some long ones, and this will be probably the top.
I can't believe it's 2 o'clock. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Man.
You can get in here and just start talking. It's just fun listening to all the stories. We've enjoyed it.
I wish mine was more positive for everybody, you know. But some of it's kind of.
You know what? Honestly, I appreciate you coming in here and being willing to talk about it. I mean, it's been all these years. You don't have to tell this story to nobody.
Right.
But people do want to hear about it, and I think people do wonder what you're up to. And when I posted, when I share on social media is just a tip of the iceberg. It's not the world's opinion. But when I shared that you were coming on, I mean, we've had people ask for you for so long to come on this show. Anytime we're like, hey man, who should we get? Your name comes up more often than most anyone else's.
Man.
So there's gonna be a lot of people that are excited about this. I know you've done other podcasts. You've not been completely out of the media over the last several years, but you don't have to do this. And I appreciate you coming and sharing, telling your side of it. You know, I guess it really at this point doesn't matter what the real truth is. It's just, you know, everybody's going to have their opinions and feelings about it. But I think that the fact that you're able to come and be clear and honest and tell your truth and talk about all the old times and stuff, it's nice. So
well, I appreciate that. I really do.
I've been, like a lot of people, curious what you've been up to, hoping things are going well for you. And it was good to see you at the dirt track the other week.
Yep.
And
that's been a lot of fun too, by the way.
Going to the track?
Yeah, I've had a lot of that, or helping them, His name's Spencer Bradshaw. I told you, introduced you to him, and they're great people.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of fun going out there trying to help them.
Yeah, that's got to be that's got to be pretty enjoyable. I mean, if you're in I still miss driving,
Right.
But so I don't know if it'd be fun for me to go. Even it's nice to go see Wyatt race every once in a while.
Right.
I don't help. I don't know nothing about those carts. But, I can fix something if it falls off. But
right.
I don't know how to make it go fast.
I don't either yet, so we're working on that too.
So that'd be a little bit out of my wheelhouse. But, yeah, man. Where are you headed?
Probably the racetrack. Going to Millbridge tonight. Yeah, they're racing tonight. Yep.
Okay, so you'll be at Millbridge tonight.
Yep.
So if people wanted to go say hey to you, you're at Millbridge on Wednesdays pretty much?
Yeah, pretty much. Like Tuesdays and sometimes Wednesdays, sometimes Saturday. They race all the time,
Right.
I think I'm racing more now with them guys than I have my whole career, really. As far as per week,
So you must see a lot of folks from the industry at Millbridge.
Yeah, I have
there's a bunch of people around.
Yep, and it's been pretty cool because it's kind of, like I said, brought a lot of people. I've missed in the past and everything else. So it's definitely helped me.
Yeah.
So
really would love to see you back behind the wheel of a race car.
Yes.
I know. I'd like to be behind
Absolutely.
one.
I would probably tune in to an SRX race if I knew you were in the field.
Really? Well, I appreciate that, buddy.
I would.
I really do.
I've watched a lot of it last year, but some of them I skipped.
Right.
But I think if you were driving, I'd probably tune in.
What if both of if we were both in there? You know what I mean?
I don't think they got to check that they need to
Right.
write for that. Yeah.
I was thinking to say that'd be a pretty cool deal too.
Yeah. That would be fun. I was really jealous of Chase when he run Nashville Fairgrounds because I love that racetrack.
I do too. That's one of my favorite places, man.
Yeah.
Nashville's always been awesome.
Yeah.
Been good.
Well, man, we're going to try to keep our ear to the ground and keep up with you.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it. Anytime you want me on, I'll be on. Be more
All right.
happy. Yep.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, buddy.
Jeremy Mayfield on the Dale Jr. Download. Well, Mike, that's the Jeremy Mayfield story. So a lot of people have been asking to get Jeremy on here ever since we've been doing this, and it didn't disappoint.
No, he didn't. And I know we said this earlier, but I hope he doesn't regret coming on and telling a story. I think his opinion matters to both of us. Mm-hmm. We want our guests to come in here and feel like that they were treated fairly. And I certainly think that we did. He opened up a lot. Again, I've mentioned the most crazy thing that he said. We just heard it, and that was what he did at the Evernham Christmas party. I think that sort of inspires my feeling that he burned that bridge. Yeah. He didn't just burn the bridge, but he blew it up on the way out.
I think that the Jeremy that we saw today is a completely different person from the guy that was doing those type of things. And so when he was a driver, I think that he was emboldened and confident and overconfident and felt like he had the power and influence to basically kind of say and do as he liked, right? And without any repercussions and he would go do or say these things, right, about a car owner or whatever, right? Go at NASCAR or thinking that it was not a big deal. And I guess I'm kind of like he's surprised that it was this big story in the Chicago Tribune the next morning. Like, hey, man, I can't believe that happened. What, are you serious?
Right.
Of course you knew that was going to happen.
Right. You
might not have wanted that to happen, but you knew when you were saying it that it was a big deal. And it's pretty interesting. And he kind of wants to frame up the situation at the Christmas party like it was like, oh, I didn't know what I was doing.
Right.
You know dang well he knew what he was doing.
And you said that you called him out on it. You said, wait a second.
Yeah.
That wasn't just a thing. The wife asked you to take a picture of her, and you didn't think that was even a little bit.
Right.
You didn't know what was going on.
And so, yeah. And so I think with Jeremy's story, you have to keep that in mind. That was, as you're hearing it from him, he ain't telling you everything. He ain't telling you all of the ingredients.
He may not even remember it all the details.
That's a good point. But I know that, in his mind, what he did on that Christmas party isn't that egregious or isn't that serious. And he even would tell you the story in a way that maybe Yeah, I didn't know what I was doing when absolutely he was in on the joke.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think you gotta kind of keep that in mind as you're hearing the whole story.
Yeah.
Right.
Listen, everybody reserves the right to recognize that you might have been an asshole, along the way. I just had this observation for myself, frankly.
Yeah.
I came across a journal that I wrote in my freshman year of college. We're talking 20 years ago, right? Or more than that, in my freshman year of college. And I'm reading this journal, and I'm thinking, there's some things in there that are pretty embarrassing. Like, what an asshole. Why would I say that? I've thought that. What was I thinking?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I don't want anybody to ever see this. This is embarrassing.
Yeah.
And yes, like you forget sometimes the kind of the imbecile that you were growing up.
Yes.
You make mistakes. Jeremy could have absolutely used a mentor, but I have a suspicion he burned the bridge with the potential mentors. Or, like he probably said something to Rusty Wallace, Bill Elliott, whoever it is. Yeah. Certainly his owners. Kranifus probably was the closest thing to a mentor, and he was kind of a fireball himself, right? So I'm like, he could have used somebody going, hey, listen, back it down a notch. Mm-hmm. You're messing up, whatever.
Getting a little too big for your britches.
That's right. And, he burned bridges along the way. But, we all reserve the right to try to improve our lives and improve ourselves as a person. I hope, and I think he's done that, but he certainly has made a very public, made some public decisions that probably weren't the greatest for him.
Thank you, Ally, for your continued support of the show and the entire Dirty Mo Media team.
Nobody serves up country like Cracker Barrel, but nobody, and we mean nobody, serves the country like our military veterans. That's why Cracker Barrel is once again proud to show our ongoing gratitude with an exclusive military discount. Cracker Barrel Rewards members who are veterans or active duty military receive 10% off in-store purchases. Thank you for your service. We look forward to welcoming you soon. All the more, all at Cracker Barrel.
It's time for some Ask Junior.
All right, we are live on YouTube.
Hey everybody, it's Dale Jr. and you're here for the Ask Junior portion of the show, brought to you by Xfinity. Xfinity X5 is fast and reliable, and I'm a customer and enjoy using it, and I hope you guys will check it out. Xfinity does so much for not only this podcast, but the entire sport of NASCAR. We ought to support them. And they got Ed Helms on their commercials now. How about that?
That is awesome. I love Ed Helms.
So, we'd like to get him in the studio. Come on, Xfinity, help us out.
That's right.
Anyways, Hannah has your questions, and she's going to bring them to the table. Let's go, Hannah.
All right, this first one here comes from Caleb. Actually, a lot of the folks have kind of been talking about the Xfinity race this weekend at Portland. It said, Dale, do you think the Xfinity Series needs their own crown jewel race? Maybe something along the lines of a standalone when the Cup Series is off 400 miles or so with an extra big payday. Could be good for exposure. And I think this has a lot to do with the conversation we had where maybe we let the All-Star race, let the Xfinity guys race for $1 million instead one day.
Things like that can't really be manufactured, right? You can't just say this race is now a crown jewel. That either happens naturally from fan engagement and if something, if something's happening the fans love and can't get enough of, then you might say, well, maybe, man, this is the crown jewel of the Xfinity Series. I hate that slogan. I hate that word.
Mm-hmm. You hate crown jewel.
Crown jewel.
Well, you have a jewelry phobia.
Well, I do, but it also sounds like we've taken something from a different sport. It's like we've taken something from horse racing or something, right? Like the Triple Crown. Is there another sport out there that has something called the crown jewel, like the crown jewels?
I feel like there's got to be something else.
I don't know.
I have less of a problem with that and more of a problem with this is our Super Bowl of racing.
Oh, yeah.
That's the one I have a problem
really?
with.
You don't like
just
that
completely hijacking football.
Yeah. Well, I think we used to say that because we didn't think we really had that big of a fan base, and we had to kind of give them an idea that this race, I know it's the first race, but this is the biggest race, if that makes any sense. But talking about the Daytona 500, but I hear you now. I mean, it's kind of redundant to keep on going with it. You don't hear it as much anymore. I think people agree with you, Mike. Anyways, so Portland seemed pretty cool. I didn't expect that to be too exciting, but ended up having some rain and all that, so that made it pretty interesting. Guys practicing, qualifying, and all that in the weather. But I don't know what I'm more worried about. What is the Xfinity Series in a couple of years? I think that we got to all think about, man, what's the bigger concern, I think, is the identity of the series. As we've went to the next gen car, and the Truck Series is important to NASCAR because it's trucks, right? And manufacturers want to sell trucks, and so the Truck Series still matters to a Chevrolet or a Toyota, whereas the Xfinity Series doesn't have that identity or doesn't have that connection to the manufacturers, I don't think, as it once did. It never really did. It never really was. I mean, it was cool to get the Camaros and stuff and the muscle cars, back, but it never had that importance, like the trucks did, or like the Cup Series does in terms of the manufacturer support, and that's so important that it finds its identity going forward. What does it become, right? I'm a little worried about that because that's where we're at. That's where this company is. What is the Xfinity Series in 5 years? And that to me is going to be an interesting thing to find out. Does it become does it become like NASCAR's venture into electric cars? Does Xfinity go full electric? Is like a way for them to vet out all the bugs and problems with that before they take that to the Cup level? Are we going to have SUVs? What are we going to? What's going to happen? They're going to change it. It's not going to stay like this. All right. There's no way NASCAR keep their hands off of it, and so we'll see what happens in a couple years.
And to kind of continue unfortunately, the crown jewel conversation. I remember this one coming from social around Coke 600 weekend with Brickyard now not being really a crown jewel race because it's non-existent. Has Denny Hamlin therefore completed the crown? Okay,
what's the crown? Everybody has an opinion about it. Which races are those races? So everybody, like Brad Keselowski would say, Night Bristol is one of those, whereas someone else might say that it's not, or the Southern 500 is or isn't. There's a couple people that don't have the Southern 500 on their list. So we need to first determine which are the races. Let's all just put that in concrete and make a choice. These are the races.
Who goes first?
It's Daytona.
You.
Daytona 500, World 600, Southern 500.
That's it for me.
I say now that the Brickyard's gone, right?
Yeah.
That would be just the 3.
I don't know that
one
the Brickyard.
More.
What?
I mean, are you going to say
Am I missing one?
Well,
No.
the Bristol Night race. Are you going to
Bristol
make that
Night
up?
would be my borderline one, but I don't know.
See?
I think Crown Jewel doesn't need to be 4.
Right.
It could be 3. Why do we need 4?
Well, then it's easier to.
Why do we need 17 people
well,
in the
no,
chase?
but if it's
16
3,
people.
it's easier to accomplish. If it's if it's not 4.
We don't have to
Who else
have
has
everything.
won all
Doesn't have to
3?
be important.
Listen. To me, if you want to sit there and have a crown jewel conversation, what makes it is whether or not it could change in time, whether the race becomes bad or not. And that if Bristol Night race is going to be good one year and bad the next year and this, that, and the other, then it wasn't a crown jewel in my opinion. The Southern 500, though, sort of stood the test of time. But you're right. There's people that wouldn't even know to consider that a big race today.
But if you're taking that into consideration, the Coke 600, this is the first year that it's been good in a hot minute.
Then maybe it's not even. I'm just saying.
Right.
Listen, if we go into your world of sprint cars and stuff, you got Chili Bowl.
Knoxville Nationals.
You got Knoxville Nationals. And there's just no question. I don't need to know whether the race was good or not. I don't need to know what kind of compound they put on a track. I don't need to know what the rules packages were. We just know that Chili Bowl's big, Knoxville National's big. If you want to get, that's just saying. There doesn't need to be this criteria that I got to contemplate every year.
Right.
If the Daytona race to me is really it for us.
Yeah.
It really is. Daytona, I don't have to know the result. I have to know anything to know that it's going to be a big deal. So, I know I'm also probably on an island on that idea, but
I was going to say, maybe we can take that to social eventually on what the crown jewels
Yeah.
are, because a lot of folks are chiming in on the chat saying that their 4, if they had to choose 4, are the 500, the World 600, the Southern 500, and Bristol Night. So everyone's been putting those
All right,
4.
everybody, y'all have just made the decision. Those are the 4. It is made. Let's write it concrete. Done. Good job. We've got it figured out.
Close the book.
After all, close it. No
right.
more conversation. So those are the 4.
and Watkins Glen.
Nope.
All right, next one here. Kind of changing the pace to the truck race. After watching the Carson host of our accident, what do you think about having some sort of signal light similar to what's used in road course races at the back glass to alert safety workers? Hazard lights to alert officials that you need help quickly, along with the window net lowered. And I think we can also group in the ideology of potentially having a safety crew that is specific to NASCAR that travels with NASCAR instead of doing localized stuff, because IndyCar has their own AMR team that goes to every race with them in comparison to NASCAR using localized staff.
Yeah. So this, what I saw at Indy this year was really incredible. We had a couple accidents. Not Brian Herter, but Herter's Colton Herter's crash in turn 2, and he comes sliding. He's upside down. I'm thinking, man, he can't get out with the halo and all that. He's stuck in there. That's terrifying. You don't ever want to be stuck in a car. But the corner workers were moving before the car stopped, so they're already pulling out of their little holes in the fence to get to him before he even came to a stop. And they were right on top of that car seconds later. And the other thing I saw as I was walking through the garage that morning to go to my first hit on TV, they had a blank tub, IndyCar tub, sitting in the back of the garage, and there were about 25 AMR corner workers standing around it, and they were individually taking turns pulling a dummy out of the cockpit. And this is like 10 o'clock in the morning before the race starts. And they were like having drills, like you'd see, firemen having drills going up and down the tower. And I loved that. You know what I mean? I mean, if you're a race car driver getting ready to go out there and compete, it's super dangerous. And you saw that in the back of back of the garage happening on race day morning. You're like, man, these people are on it. They're going to be, all that's going to be fresh on their memory if they're ever put in a scenario where they've got to rescue a driver, because they were practicing that morning. Not that this doesn't happen in NASCAR, I'm not sure. But I loved what I saw at Indy with their AMR crew. And the consistency, knowing that they're there every week and it's the same people, and their training is top notch. Their ability to get out on the racetrack, because they're working with the same tower week after week. They all understand each other's urgency and cadence, and they're communicating during the week back and forth with the race directors, working, tuning, fixing, and adjusting things, and getting to those drivers in the quickest possible manner. And they're setting the example, in my mind, that all motorsports should strive to be. And so, it's we got work to do. I think after we saw what we saw, we got a little work to do. And unfortunate that we have to go through the experience to realize that, right? But hopefully, I'm sure NASCAR is going to do whatever they can to not have a scenario like that play out again, and do a little better job of trying to get their guys out there to a crashed vehicle with an injured driver. I don't know what else needs to happen as far as flashing lights and all that good stuff. Injured drivers, are injured. They're, we can't rely on them to do anything special or unique to give us a signal. Hey man, I'm in trouble in here. But I'm sure there's some technology and so forth that we could look at to. I think the idea in my mind is the corner worker should be there as quick as possible, injured or not. The guy made contact with anything that, they make you contact is the only box that needs to get checked for them to be on top of that car when it's done crashing, right? And so I think they just got a little work to do about getting them out there a little quicker.
And last one here for this one's Ask Junior. This one comes from Chase Brisket, which I thought was humorous. It says, with your dad and Johnny Cash both so perfectly sharing the Man in Black nickname, did the two ever meet that you can recall?
I don't recall that, but very cool.
Chase Brisket. I love humorous names like
I
that
do
on social
too.
media.
That flub of a question was saved by the name.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. I wonder if Chase Briscoe heard our commentary from last week. Hey, he did respond
He
on
responded,
social media.
yeah, he
That
responded
was
on Twitter.
Very funny.
What'd he say?
He had a GIF.
It was a
Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah, Jim Carrey, Dumb and Dumber,
where he's trying to get his head back in the limousine.
and he can't get his head back in. Awesome. Well, that is it for this week's Ask Junior.
All right, y'all. Appreciate y'all supporting our podcast. Thanks to Xfinity and everything they do for us. And like I said, that Xfinity X5 is fast, reliable, secure. I can say that because I have experienced it.
And everybody watching this YouTube, don't forget that the Xfinity provides Wi-Fi coverage that delivers the speed that all your devices need, including watching Ask Junior on YouTube. So thank you for doing that. And remember to keep the questions coming on at Xfinity Racing on Twitter.
Thank you to Xfinity, proud premier partner of NASCAR. Boy, that's a mouthful. Well, Mike, great show. Ask Junior was good. Some good questions there. Mayfield wraps up. And next week, we got a pretty special episode coming out.
Right, the best of our cheating stories. Hold up, not cheating, creative
Innovation.
thinking, innovation stories, the best of innovation.
Yeah, we tried to compile really challenge Matthew to dig deep into our archives and bring out some really, really good stories. Not just the low-hanging fruit, the obvious stuff, but really dig deep.
Yeah.
And get those good cheating stories out. And anyway, we love it. We're trying to encourage it. We're trying to encourage more people to come in here.
Yeah.
And maybe they'll make the innovation cheating episode part 2.
That's right.
When we do that one. So anyhow, you guys are going to enjoy that a lot. We love trying to bend the rules in NASCAR.
And we love encouraging other people to do it, so we're not having the one suffering the consequences to it.
Yeah, that should be another episode. Is NASCAR fines? We should just cover fines and why they happen and who they happen to.
That'd be awesome.
Get that person's comments on it.
All right, man. Good
All right.
stuff.
We'll see y'all later. Have a good week.